Yes.
Are you ready, Dave? Great. So we'll get started with the IGA process and appointees, and Planner Kimmett, thank you for putting together the presentation. I assume that was you. So if you would like to take it away.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mayor Rogan and trustees. Thanks for being here tonight for this workshop. I am going to share my screen so that others can have a look-see. Yep, there it is. And yeah, it's on full screen, so that's some big guess.
Must not be.
Let's see. Get it slightly bigger, go to slideshow. Yeah.
It's showing them. There you go. It is now.
It is.
Great.
Okay. Okay. So, IGAs, topic for tonight. When I first started in planning, I thought that stood for Italian Great Asiago. I was thinking it might stand for invite Greg anonymously, but it stands for intergovernmental agreements. And it's something that I think it can be difficult to wrap your head around what is an intergovernmental agreement, especially if you haven't been involved in the process before. And I know that this board has been signatory to some intergovernmental agreements from what I can tell on the date. No, not a single. No, these predate this board. Okay. So this is especially good then. I thought that maybe there was some other types of, because there's so many types of
other IGAs we've done. It's not land use IGAs, but we've executed all sorts of IGAs on this board. Anytime you have an agreement with another governmental entity, it's an IGA.
Yeah. So you have been involved. Okay. Which is good. So what we're talking about specifically tonight is a quite important, maybe the most important of the IGAs that we become signatory to, in my humble opinion. Let me move on to the next slide. Okay. Intergovernmental agreement. This is the generic definition of what an IGA is. And this is straight from DOLA, the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. This is the only slide that I'll read verbatim because I think it's that significant.
Sorry, my Word is trying to restart.
Okay, I can still read it while town clerk gets it figured out. All right, an intergovernmental agreement. Let's see, now my screen is. An intergovernmental agreement is any agreement that involves or is made between two or more governments in cooperation to solve problems of mutual concern. Intergovernmental agreements can be made between or among a broad range of governmental or quasi-governmental entities. A quasi-governmental entity being something like the Lions Fire Protection District or the Lions Community Library District, Regional Library District. Governments use IGAs for cooperative planning, development review, resource sharing, joint planning commissions, building inspection services, and more. We as a town, that last one really kind of came to my mind, second to the last one, building inspection services. So we work with a private consulting firm, but there are regional building inspection services too. If that's ever a direction that we wanted to go. And a great example of that would be the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department, which involved all the governments of that region. So anyway, the generic definition of what an IGA is. Some examples of ours. These are just a handful. There's so many. I didn't even know where to pick and choose from with the Lions Urban Renewal Authority for urban renewal. As we all know, we buy water from Longmont that we are drinking probably right now. Boulder County and the town of Jamestown. This is a recent exciting one. The Fair Safe Trash Receptacle Grant Program that was kind of a confluence of affairs between town of Jamestown, Boulder County, and the town of Lyons, which is exciting. Lyons Fire Protection District, I already mentioned that one. Boulder County, oh my gosh, we have dozens with Boulder County. Aside from the first sub-bullet, land use rights, CEMEX, opioid monies is a recent one. Sheriff's office substation across the street at the depot, hosting elections, housing authority. I went through our files and we have many Boulder County agreements. Last interesting one, we have numerous agreements with CDOT, but we have one for the planning of Highway 66 between Highland Drive and US 36, the Highway 66 PEL study. So yeah, a lot of primary concern. The Paragon agreement between the town of Lyons and Boulder County is our one regarding land use rights. And it's an interesting concept. It's a lot different than how almost all county and municipal jurisdiction relationships work across America. It's really unique. Boulder County was innovative in this approach back in the 1970s to come up with an idea whereby the county actually has somewhat of the upper hand in how municipalities use their land. Boulder County started in 1968, I believe, taxing itself for acquiring agricultural open space. And that's why Boulder County looks the way it does now. If you drive across the border into Larimer County's former open spaces on the plains are divided into small parcels. Boulder County still has quite large parcels of land and they like to keep it that way. And this came to a crux with the agreement of 1978, creating this IGA between the county and its appurtenant municipalities, Lyons being a part of that. So most places in the country, that's not the case. Most places, cities and a county kind of are at loggerheads on how to use their land, and usually cities are the dominant entity. In this case, it's a little bit of the inverse. Our current land use IGA framework is from 2012. So it's 10 years old. It officially expired this past November, and we were able to obtain an extension on it, I believe through. So time is of the essence. We don't have a whole lot of time to perform this IGA, which normally Victoria said takes 6 to 9 months, or if not a full year. We're down to about 6 months. So not much time to talk about how land will be used in the town of Lyons and its relationship with Boulder County for the next 10 years. It dictates what areas are potentially annexable and what areas are set aside for land preservation. So in the jargon of Boulder County, those areas are called municipal influence areas or primary planning areas. And those are the zones that the county and the town have agreed to that we can potentially annex. It doesn't mean we have to annex them. It's just available for annexation if we see fit. Now we have our own annexation requirements, as we all know. We can't just go willy-nilly say we want to annex that land. Depending on how large it is, it could go to a vote of the people, or it's not of use for us to annex. So don't think of it as, oh yeah, we're annexing this land that's a municipal influence area, because that's not the case. It's important to distinguish ability to annex versus we will annex. And then the second sub bullet there, the rural preservation area, those are areas that the town and the county have decided for the next 10 years will not be annexed. Yeah,
But that was in 2012.
that was in 2012. Yeah, and so we'll come up with a whole new host of potentially annexable and non-annexable areas.
Can it be
Yeah.
annexed to be preserved? Like, could it be annexed to connect to?
Typically, so that's a great question, Trustee Delman. So typically, annexation involves the provision of municipal services. There are some unusual cases, like we happen to own the Martin parcel, and we're not going to be providing what you would typically think of as municipal services to the Martin parcel. but, it's annexable because we own it.
You can annex properties without providing utilities. I mean, any commercial development on there, you provide utilities. But if you just wanted to, for example, annex an open space, we've done that plenty of times. You can do that. So long as it meets the requirements for annexation, which include contiguity and so on and so forth. But
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Dittman. Another question?
Yeah, who does the outreach to the landowners in the planning area? Because there are landowners that have said, I don't want to be in this IGA. How did I get in it? Get me out of it. Can you speak to that? I mean, who?
That's why we were waiting for our comprehensive plan to be done, because that was to include those shareholders in the area to make sure they had a voice.
Mhm.
So even if, you could have an individual property owner, who doesn't want to be involved, but that's not necessarily going to guarantee them.
Yeah, sure.
This is that very high level of what is appropriate and able to be annexed and provided services. So, again, they're looking at it more as a whole than they are as individual properties.
Does
They
the
get
county?
noticed though. Oh,
does
yeah, they get
the-
noticed.
When you say anything not in town, you're counting.
Yeah, so does the
county's
county talk to them?
responsibility.
Do they?
Well, when this process goes through, there's of course first and second readings and there's
Yeah.
public hearings. So that's how they get notified.
Okay.
But individual folks, they're expected to come in and talk during the any public notices.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine you could just say, no, I'm an island. And I don't want to be a part of like Boulder County or Lyons intergovernmental agreement. That would seem.
That would seem ridiculous, although I know there is a whole swath of a certain area that is getting together to say we want out of the IGA.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
So I
okay,
don't know if they've done anything.
okay.
They might want to come talk to us then.
Yeah,
Let us
Right.
know.
Yeah.
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 It's not the
that's-
flavor of the day right now. It will be.
Yeah, it will be.
All right.
So I have a question, if you don't mind, and
Sure.
if it's not appropriate now, I'll hold it for another time, but the no development areas on this map, that hatched areas, I'm curious what criteria were used to determine that those are no development areas?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mayor. So there's several criteria that they could be used for. Some could be because they're steep slopes or geologic hazards. Others
Or
are,
geologic features.
or geologic features,
That's
or-
what most of them.
Okay.
cultural features. There's certain areas that they, feel have, substantive cultural value that they should not, be developed upon. It could be also environmental aspects like, species related, that are off limits to annexation.
Okay,
And it's a great question because you think, part of it will be answered in the next couple minutes on another map that's a part of the presentation. But, yeah, that's part of the rationale of why certain areas can't be annexed, even though it's within the primary planning area. So it's primary planning area. Oh yeah, that seems like we could potentially annex it, but there are components that the county and the town agreed to. Okay, we won't annex that.
We will both agree to those during the IGA process. So during our negotiations, if one of us says we don't want this as a no development zone, we'll need to explain and convince the other side that that's reasonable. So during our last negotiations, most of these were sites that were part of topography to make a whole, so that, so you don't see houses along, the base of Coffin Top and things like that. It's to maintain cultural and topographical treasures, really. And, but we both agreed to them. Both agreed to them.
okay, thank you.
So if you look at this map, this is the 2012 era Lyons planning area IGA map. This stemmed from the I guess 2011, 2012 agreement. Anything that is yellow is part of the primary planning area, also known as municipal influence area. So we could potentially annex, not that we will, but we could potentially annex the Apple Valley area. We could potentially annex the County Road 69, Lot F area. We could potentially annex the Lucanen parcel area and this area around Shady Lane and the intersection of US 36. and
If I could, I think we have to be really careful of the language. We could potentially annex if the landowner agrees.
Yes.
That is correct.
And
They seek
there's
it.
people that get very
Yes.
upset when that is not stated.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Trust me, I think, yeah, there's many hoops to the annexation process. And part of which is the landowner want to. Now, there is a caveat to that. If it's an enclave
Yeah.
doesn't have to have landowner consent. If there's a county jurisdiction enclave within town, entirely surrounded by town limits, which we do have a couple of those. One thing I noticed on this, that before I forward to the next map, this parcel right here, which is known as the green parcel.
Which one?
Yes, can you see where my arrow?
No.
All right, let me see if I can,
The northern, yeah, thank you.
yeah. But-
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, right, no, sorry, one over, this green one here.
That's a 5 acre lot, is that right?
No,
Yeah,
50 acres.
it's like 50 to
Oh,
50 to 60 acres. I wish I had a laser pointer already. So we'll take a look at another map, but Director Kaplan pointed to the right area. So the Boone parcel is on the north end of Fifth Avenue, and it's 50 to 60 acres. On this particular map, and I don't know why, it's designated as Lyons Rural Preservation, so not annexable. However, on another map, it is shown as Lyons Primary Planning Area and the Lyons Municipal Influence Area, so would be annexable. And I don't know why there's a discrepancy. The only parcel I found, and I only discovered this today, like this afternoon, when I was going over my presentation, I'm like, oh, look at that. That's a big difference on a parcel of interest right now because the land is for sale. The owners of it have expressed interest to annex. So I don't know why, or if anyone can answer why that is. Yeah, you can see right here, I don't know if you see my arrow moving.
Yep.
You see that little orange area right there? That's the Boone parcel. And orange in this case is the municipal influence area that we could potentially annex. So I don't know why. Okay, if you look at it back at this map, you can see there's a special CEMEX area intergovernmental agreement. This map represents the zoomed in version of that, so you can get a better idea. We do have, aside from our general land use IGA with Boulder County, currently we have a CEMEX specific one. This one doesn't expire for another 11 years. It doesn't mean that it can't be renegotiated. It's the ranking agreement, but agreements can also be brought up. There's discomfort. And
Do you have to negotiate with CEMEX or is this purely
this is purely intergovernmental agreement.
Boulder County and?
Yep.
Okay, CEMEX has got. nothing to do
Independent
with
of
it.
CEMEX.
And,
Yeah.
and if you'll remember during the quarry process, we actually did send a letter asking to renegotiate the IGA at
Yeah.
one point. So they're aware, the county's aware that we're interested in doing that.
So CEMEX will be certainly the land of CEMEX being within our 3-mile planning area. That will be a part of discussions during this round of our IGA for the future, for the next 10 years. And it is interesting when you look at this, that the zones dedicated to us at that time during this IGA are pretty minimal. You have a municipal facilities area in the northern portion along Highway 66, and that's really essentially for like a water treatment plant or something like that. And then you have the primary planning area, which again, primary planning area meaning potentially annexable, but it's the actual cement kiln, cement plant. And so that presents its own problems for how does the town of Lyons make use of what is and has been for decades a cement plant. And kiln with contamination concerns, infrastructure concerns, everything that would need to be remediated in order to bring that into a developable state. So that's an interesting component of what will be coming in the overall negotiation. I think this next slide really is interesting because it shows all the various IGAs between Boulder County and its constituent municipalities. And you can see how close Lyons gets to Longmont. There's a gap, more or less, where CEMEX is in our intergovernmental agreements. And then all the other jurisdictions. Of note, I did find out just today from the town planner of Netherlands that they are still contemplating not signing an IGA with Boulder County. So, yeah, different than what the mayor says, but the town planner, who is also the town manager, has it's potential that they will sign an IGA, but it won't be this year. They're going to study it, and their worry is that Boulder County kind of has hamstrung them in their ability to annex. So they might not re-sign an IGA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Curious though, wouldn't that make it even more difficult to annex?
No, not necessarily,
Okay.
because Boulder County and any municipality agree to terms of what is annexable and what is not annexable.
Mhm.
If the IGA expires and it's not re-signed, essentially anything within the 3 mile planning area is fair game for a
Okay.
potential annexation down the road.
Okay, okay.
Whatever that municipality's abilities and rules are, and under state law as a statutory town, how you have to go through an annexation process.
But doesn't the county still have to approve the annex as well?
So
So both parties would still have to agree to it.
no, the county
No?
doesn't have to agree to an annexation. If there's not an agreement, a municipality has the ability to annex so long as it meets its own laws and state law.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just mention, Trustee Edding, that most counties don't have this kind of IGA. It's kind of a unique Boulder feature.
Yeah.
So most places we do work, we do annexation, we follow the process where to inform the county of it, them doing it, but it's really not up to them about whether we do it or not.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about Longmont's IGA than I am Netherlands.
Mhm.
Like, how close can Longmont get to us potentially?
Good question. Well, if you look at, and I don't know what the framework of their IGA will end up, and
Yeah.
we have this so-called super IGA, like the title of this slide is, that involves all the municipalities and Boulder County to demonstrate this is the framework of how Boulder County will look over the next 10 years as a whole. At that time, there's quite a bit from 2012, this is the 2012 era super IGA. Longmont is pretty limited.
I guess they can get this close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty limited. There's a lot of rural preservation area to the west.
Like
and
hygiene and
northwest
stuff.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That
Is the 3 mile rule a state rule?
the 3 mile rule is a planning rule. So let me go to the next slide.
Like Longmont couldn't go 3 miles from their current border right now.
If there was not an intergovernmental agreement, let's just say Longmont doesn't sign an IGA with Boulder County. That would be a game changer. Like,
Yeah.
if Longmont says, no, we don't want to sign an IGA with you, they could then use their 3 mile planning area as their guidepost for where they want to annex next. I haven't heard anything of that. The first I had heard of any municipality not potentially wanting to sign an IGA with
Yeah.
Boulder County is Netherlands. So as it stands right now under 2012 rules, Longmont doesn't look like it's going to be marching towards Lyons.
Okay.
Yeah. So good question, Director Kaplan. So the 3 mile plan, it's essentially our area of influence. Within 3 miles of the current corporate boundary of the town of Lyons, we have the right and the responsibility to contemplate land use. And that land use has entirely to do with annexation. Like, this is the area where you, as a municipality, can think about the future of your town, or your city. And it's something that, is a part of our Lions Thrive Comprehensive Plan. And that will be the ranking 3-mile plan for 2023. However, in 2024, we'll have to come up with a new one because we're supposed to create one annually and inform the Department of Local Affairs. And it could be the exact same, maybe it won't change. But every year we have the opportunity to update our 3-mile plan. Right now, that is the extent of our 3-mile plan, this map, our 3-mile planning area. So we have a municipal influence zone that incorporates all of Cemex and a whole bunch of national forest and Boulder County open spaces and even into Larimer County. That's 3 miles beyond the current boundary of the town of Lyons. That has no bearing on, our desire to annex any of that. But this is the area where we can plan for how land use is considered from a town planning perspective. We have about 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left. So, I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions now or after.
We need to talk some semantics.
Yeah.
About negotiations because they start next week with Boulder County. And you need to decide who's going to represent the trustees, and David and I are planning to attend as the staff involved. But it will become intensive over the next 6 months, regular meetings, differing opinions. So you guys need to decide who has the bandwidth and capacity to represent you.
And I'm happy to. Yeah, I would welcome additional
That 2 eyes on it.
support.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll think about it.
Okay.
If not, I'll-
For an alternate, if something would happen.
Or an alternate, right, yeah.
Can we have 2 board and a PCDC person?
That's
Too
getting
many?
to be a lot. Usually, you're trying to have you could. Right now, they have 1, 2, 3, they probably have 4 people or 5 on their side. So I'm sure you could.
So we'll be having executive sessions to talk about, what our parameters are, or what we want to ask for.
Yeah,
I'm wondering whether we want to get PCDC input on that and how that might work. Can we have an executive session with the PCDC chair, or can PCDC have its own
We have
executive
the schedule
session?
for executive session at your next meeting on May 1st. So if you would like to invite someone in, you sure could.
Okay. Attorney Dittman, would that be acceptable to have PCDC folks in those?
Yeah, so long as there's no more than 2.
Okay,
but yeah, I think the conversation needs to be, what do we want fixed? What's currently wrong with an IGA?
Well,
do we
that's
want
what
to
we'll
be
do in
done?
the executive
Yeah,
session.
that's what needs to happen.
okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm sure much more to come.
yeah, and this is just a primer on like how to grapple with what we have to accomplish ahead.
Okay.
There's a lot. But it's also exciting. That's the thing to think about it too. It's really our opportunity to make things in a way that works best for our town. And it's the first time we've had the chance since 2012. So,
Well, and
Nice.
I will say, Victoria and I had an initial meeting with the commissioners and their staff, and they actually read our comp plan. They congratulated us on it, and they read it, and they had questions, and so
That's amazing.
it's doing its job.
I love
Great.
that.
Yay.
Cool. Okay,
Okay,
well, should other
Thank you.
questions arise, when you get in touch.
Yep.
Okay.
thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, we have the Safe Brain Trail update and Railroad Avenue update. Okay.
Let me start by sharing my screen here. Yeah, we wanted to circle back with the board, and give you an update of where we're at with this project. So a quick, synopsis is, what that memo. So we have completed 30% design, and that has been submitted to CDOT. They review 30% and 90%, and then when we are ready to go out to bid, they review your 100%. So we did submit that to them last Friday. They'll review it and give us comments back on, or in early May. So however, we still have an alignment conflict in the same area. About 300 feet around the parks building area, and I'll go over some options that we feel like we may have there. We are also still at a funding shortfall for this project. We are still working options that have nothing solid yet. But at the end with I'll go over the numbers. I do have updated numbers, so the shortfall's gone down a little, but just because I've got new numbers from the engineer from their opinion of cost for the project, and I just got those today. It's still not significant enough, to make a huge difference. There's some other considerations to think about environmentally. The Preble's mouse could be present in that area. If they find that's the case, then we have to do mitigation for that. We have some wetlands, we're trying to avoid them, but if you impact those, then you also have to do mitigation. And like examples of mitigation, like for Preble's mouse, you might have to put in like PVC piping for them to have ways to get around the trail underneath or whatever. So create little mouse highways. And then the wetlands, like you might have to replenish wetlands in another area to replace. We also decided to, instead of doing bridges over the ditches, we're looking at box culverts crossings. So it's just a concrete culvert that sits down in the ditch and then you just cross over the top. But that could be found to have adverse effect because some ditches are historic. So the state historic office will have to review that. And again, mitigation for something like that might be, we had to do something similar in Bone Park where we made a sign that gave the history of floods in the area. So for something like that, maybe they'll say you'll need to put an educational sign up about ditches and irrigation or something. And it's all speculation. I have no idea until they do their review and give us their feedback. We are up against a deadline, so the money we get starts with federal highway, and then it goes to DRCOG, which is our regional governmental group that they take applications and they make a decision of who gets to use this money for projects. And then CDOT they oversee, they're the oversight. So DRCOG has required that we have this out for advertisement for construction last October, and we missed that deadline. So our next deadline is July 1st, and we're not going to make that either. I am communicating with them and letting them know our constraints and asking them what are the next steps to ask for an extension, because we'll have to go before the board. And right now they're just like, keep us up to date, but I'm starting to push them a little, like, what can we do? Let's start talking about an extension. I haven't done extension with CDOT before, DRCOG, so I don't know how easy it is to get one, if they'll be understanding, but I think showing progress by getting this 30% design is positive. So that shows them that we're still moving forward. And then we still, I think, have some opportunities to do some value engineering of some of our design. So there's maybe a few options we can do to bring the cost down a little, but that's something we have to look at with the design engineer and CDOT. But I don't know how much more, but there may be some things we can do to bring the cost down. So for alignment constraints, do you guys want to look at the go through it over the memo, or do you want me to pull up Google Maps? Would that be easier to look at the area of constraint and our options and that? 300-foot area.
I think I would like to see it on Google Maps.
Okay. Actually, I have this map. This map actually I think is better because it'll show you this gold area is Highland Ditch
Mhm.
property line. Zoom in here a little more. Actually, there we go. Okay, so this is the area of, where we're having a conflict. So Parks Hardware, their stores here, and they have this storage building back here. And they're leasing this property and that building from us essentially. They have a 25 more years left on their lease. There's nothing in their lease that says that they are to allow us to put a trail through here. And they have concerns about the trail going through here. They feel like it's a safety issue and they have a concern about theft and vagrants hanging around because they store material back in here. And they also use a forklift back and forth, so they felt like that was a safety issue for pedestrians. So they're not in support of it. Also with this alignment, we would be coming along the southern portion of the town right of way and cutting through this corner next to that fire pit back in the back of the distillery to get around the storage building. So that would cut off a corner of that grassy area that they utilize and lease from us. And they feel like that would be a big impact to their business. So they're not in support of the trail alignment going this direction either. So one option that's option A that's in the memo is to coming off the Vasquez Blue Mountain Stone property, cutting over onto Highland Ditch property, which is this gold area, and running the trail on their property and coming back up onto ours and crossing the ditch. And we have talked with Highland and they feel like they would need fencing here for security to keep people from hanging out over here because they've had problems with people drinking and hanging out in the water over here. They have a pump house here. So, I'm sorry, the pump house is here. No, it's here. So they want a man gate here too for emergency access to get to the pump house. And then they would also need a box culvert or some type of bridge crossing here for their ditch rider to get across to the pump house several times a day in the summer. So those are their costs for utilizing the property. We don't know to use their property. We haven't even discussed if it's going to be, permanent easement agreement or lease agreement. That hasn't even been discussed. So there could be a long-term cost associated with this as well. And that does not include to cross the ditch up here. You have to have a ditch crossing agreement, and that also costs money. So, so that's an option here. And then lastly, we will, option C would be to stay along this back half of our town-owned property, cut through the back of the distillery, this property they're leasing from us, which is in their agreement that we are able to use that last 10 feet for a trail. So it is in their agreement to allow that. So cut through here and then find some way to get through this building here. So the staff did try to work with Parks on a lease buyout agreement, and we were very close, but they decided they did not want to go allow release buyout because we were going to either cut this building in half or demo it and build a smaller building there. So that's, we don't have that option of a lease buyout with them any longer. So that's kind of where we're at as far as our alignment constraints.
Have we talked to Clark's about whether they would be open to us demoing that building and rebuilding a smaller building on a different, just a little bit different piece of land, whether that's something they would be interested in, maybe a more modern building, I don't know, maybe something. And also the building, Clark's is for sale. I mean, it's been for sale for a while, but it's for sale.
Right, I mean, if the sale, if they do sell it, then the board has a choice of whether to let the current lease go with the new sale, or we can terminate the lease at that time. But yeah, it has been for sale for a while, but no real movement yet. We have not approached them about still being able to demo and rebuild the building.
I mean, and we did moving it forward, we could tell them the options about that.
Well, the moving forward, we can't do that because we have, utility complex. We've got a water and a sewer line right in front of the building, so we'd be
Can't
sitting
move
right
it
on top of
forward,
it. So we can't move it. We could approach them. They're at this point frustrated. I don't know, what their reaction would be there. It doesn't need to ask. So,
Questions?
I do have oh, go ahead, you first.
So originally there was another option about going further south, more through the forested area. Is that completely off?
that was never really an option that was pursued because if there was a couple options going more south, I think you're running into some other constraints where you have other private property owners you're gonna have to deal with. And since the CDOT money, you have to go through the Uniform Relocation Act, which can take up to a year. Their right-of-way process can take up to a year. And also you have a lot of other, type of terrain over back in here that's kind of really unknown, so it could be challenging. So you may have other costs associated with stabilizing in certain areas that might have drop-offs and clearing trees and stuff like that. So we really were focused on this most of the time because this is and it's the most straightforward, but
And then there's the south ledge ditch that runs up along that other option. And they have rights as well about how much distance around them. They may have the same concerns. We want a fence along it. You just don't know. But the majority owner of the south ledge ditch is Cemex Corporation. And so we did not, at the time we were looking at this, go through that.
and I think you would have to cross some other Highland property and also loop it in to get over to South Ledge, so several different property owners in that situation.
So is option B really an option if we can't move the storage building?
Option B is the one going on Highland property, I believe. I have option C is going through, you just double check, I had to move
I
this.
think
around.
option A
Option A is Highland, sorry, option A is Highland. Option B, option B is going through the storage building, which is what we designed to, because we thought we were going to get this, agreement with the Parks Hardware and it didn't go through. And so, the last option is cutting between the two buildings.
So it sounds like option B is off the table then because of that building. I'm just trying to understand if option B is an option. This is my
Option-
preferred option right now.
Attorney Detman, would you like to explain option B about cutting through Clark's building?
Yeah, so if you wanted to go through the Clark's building, we'd probably have to condemn their leasehold interest in the property. Which you can do, but it is a process, one not without cost. And if we wanted to discuss that in detail, we probably need to have an executive session to do that. But you can condemn any of these properties, right? Which is the process by which the government acquires property for public use.
We do a Highland ditch, and we can.
You can do with Highland Ditch as well. Past boards decided, it's a lengthy, expensive, politically contentious process to, take property away from private landowners for just compensation. So it's again, if you want to discuss the details of that, we probably would need an executive session.
I should mention that I have been contacted by Spirit Hounds and I thought they might be here tonight. They,
There's a bit more on.
oh, he is, okay.
He was.
Oh, he was. They have indicated, right now Clark's lease does not allow a sublease to other parties. They have indicated that they are interested in seeing if the town would allow a sublease of this property, of the building to them instead. But it wasn't, we didn't receive the agenda request in time for the packet, and nor has Clark's indicated a desire to do that to us, so it's not on your agenda, but that is another factor here that you might want to consider in your thoughts, is that you do have another party, Spirit Hounds, who's very interested in utilizing that building as well, for operations of their expanded business.
Justin.
So, well, I do think that one of the biggest things that we haven't really discussed either is money. So Boulder County has said that they support this project, but have they said what they would do to financially back us up on the $600,000 to $800,000 that we're shortfall? I mean, honestly, we even go forward with that alone, and we can't, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so they're still like, they're very much discussing within their own departments of seeing if they could take from different budgets and see if they could find a way to support us, but we don't have anything confirmed. They have suggested some other grants, but the ones they suggested either had deadlines have passed, or they won't meet our deadline, or there's just various constraints that didn't work. So they still very much support this trail. So I think they're still internally talking,
Okay.
but we don't have any confirmation. So we felt like we should get up to 30%, which we did. And now we're at a critical point, like, can we move forward or not? And I think the Dr. deadline is the other thing that's like pushing there, like, how long can we, I mean, it's taken us a year to get to 30%.
Yes.
So I don't know how much longer, we've got at least till I think maybe the end of May that we could kind of stave off, going any further with design, because we still have to wait for CDOT and get their comments before we can move forward. And that's going to be early May, like the second week of May. So that's going to buy us a little time to kind of get back, and we can talk to the county and be like, hey, we're up against the deadline.
I'd like to add to that a little bit. The county, at least at the staff level, are very supportive and are trying hard. It has not gone, we have to wait to hear from their elected officials. But they have vocalized that they highly recommend we do not return the money to Dr. Cog. This is the final leg of a more regional trail for both Boulder and Longmont. So everybody is interested, because this is how you get out to their open space, at Highland Hall. So they want this piece. And they are just strongly recommending that we not return the Dr. Cog funding. So we're holding tight, waiting to hear till it goes to their elected officials. At the staff level, we know they're very supportive.
And the commissioners are also very supportive. I mean, everybody wants this trail. Everybody wants to get people off of Highway 36. It's just dangerous.
Well, so that leads me to one other thing that I wanted to discuss, and it sounds like we don't get direction though until later in the evening. But something that, I hold the comprehensive plan near and dear to my heart. And, the goals of this trail, it's safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and golf carts. It connects downtown to future Eastern Corridor St. Vrain. Increases economic access for locals and overnight tourists without using cars. And it reduces traffic and conflict on Highway 36. And we have multiple goals identified and adopted that was business development and residents giving us feedback that address each of those. And so I'm really struggling with empathy for the hardship and in some cases for our businesses and the land and the Pebble Mouse possible. But also the greater good of what we know our comprehensive plan adopted has had. This is integrated throughout. So there's a balance. And I appreciate Tracy, you working on that, but I think that we all are responsible to keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, if the money's not there, I don't know where we're gonna find personally $600,000 to $800,000. So that's really, I'm wondering, well, I can't give you or suggestions.
Well, we don't know that the money's not there. The money could be there. It's Schrodinger's money, right? It's there and it's not there at the same time. So until we find out what maybe this is for the business design, but I'm not sure how to give direction if we don't have the answer to, is the money there?
Well, maybe we considered two options. If we, by the deadline, we need to inform Dr. Cog and others, don't know that answer. This is the direction we give. And if we do get the total amount needed, which of the alternatives do you want to pursue? That's really what staff needs.
And
Right,
see, that's feedback currently as it's presented to them.
yeah, they're just gonna comment on design, so they're just gonna give us, and then they're gonna look at the environmental and go to US Fish and Wild, or CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and like State Historic Office, and they're gonna check all the environmental, but this is off system too, so they're not gonna have too much opinion about how we align it. Because it's not in their right of way, it's in the town's right of way. So, but we just have to follow their processes and they're just gonna give us feedback. But yeah, we have a couple weeks before we'll get that and move forward. I do want to mention that we did try and look at other alternatives. We did find out that, I think it's a CDOT project. They are going to be restriping this summer the lanes through that area and narrowing the lanes and adding on a shoulder for bicycles. So there will be a little more.
A small one.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
it doesn't accommodate golf carts.
no,
Oh, no.
and plus you can't be on the highway. But we did ask if we could just shorten up the pedestrian trail up to the distillery area and just stop it short there and come back and do the rest later. And one of the county wasn't in support of that. So if we still want to pursue the county option, they feel like we still have to meet the intent of
Yeah.
the full project. And we hadn't talked to Dr. Cog yet, but I have a feeling they would say the same thing. But I just wanted to throw that out there that we're always looking for options. So basically, I guess, what were you, I didn't hear the first option, Victoria, you said that about we had.
For the staff?
Yeah, I think you said.
Oh, I just said that if we don't have the funding,
Mhm.
what would they, want us to
Yeah.
just stop at 30% until that's secured? Or if we look at this as having the funding, which option? So we know if that comes forward, which one to pursue.
And there's no way to safely do it on the north side of all those buildings, like in front of the Diamond Shamrock.
So we talked to CDOT about that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
it
think
just-
so.
That was the one Tracy thing she asked. They said no.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that Mayor Rogan's asking if we could go the full length. Then you gotta do concrete, curb and gutter. We don't have the budget for that either.
Okay.
Most of this trail is crusher fine because we don't have the budget for concrete. So they were a little more in favor because of they'd rather
They'd
concrete.
rather concrete,
Yeah.
but they said it would mean closing access points
That too.
all along the area.
Yeah,
Well, which would be also tough for the businesses there.
That's,
Yeah.
well, I mean, eventually, that is their plan through the PEL, but it would not be as planned, sooner than people anticipated.
so before we move on to the next, I guess, oh, you guys can't give direction yet. We'll do that with them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We doing general business?
Yes.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
Does anybody remember when the striping will take place in that shoulder along Highway 36? Is it?
We haven't gotten a schedule yet. They just awarded it and to a contractor, and so we'll get a schedule.
It will be the middle of summer, June or July. It's painting though. It's just, it's painting.
Yeah, because they're doing an overlay from J Road to the 3666 intersection, and then they'll come back and stripe all of this, and that is usually the last thing they do. And they don't go all the way through town. It stops at Second Avenue, and then it's gonna pick back up on Highway 36 up to Apple Valley Road.
But there will be a cyclist lane integrated on the shoulder from Highway
It's
36
gonna be
and
like a
66.
5-foot shoulder.
Border, I think.
I thought it was a 5-foot.
Border, one on the side, 4, I think the other side.
Okay, yeah, 4 or 5.
We haven't got
shoulder,
it
so It's not huge, but it's.
There'll be something.
Something
There'll be
that-
something.
Yeah, it doesn't get all the way up to the intersection, but.
Okay. All right, let's move on to railroad then. Thank you very much for that.
Welcome. Okay, railroad.
Everybody's favorite curve.
This one's easy.
Let me share my screen again. So, we wanted to revisit the striping for railroad to allow for pedestrian and vehicle traffic. And so we went back to two of our originally, I think we had 4 options, so we're representing 2 of those. And we added a 5th option that was presented like a month or 2 ago from planners. So I wanted to go over each of those options, and then we would like direction on which one we would like to go with so that we can make sure that they're incorporated into the plans. So our first option we have here, this is option 2. This was the original one that was chosen. We made a slight adjustment to it where we did widen the pedestrian area from 6 feet to 8 feet. And then the bicycle traffic going west would go with traffic. It would be a shared road for vehicles and bicycle traffic. And then bicycles traveling east would have to share with pedestrians going both directions in the 8-foot wide path. This has still what they call the chicanes, where it's just the slight curvatures in the road for traffic calming. And so that's pretty much option 2. I think the items that are to be noted on that option. So. And the next option. Oh, we also raised the speed limit to 15 miles per hour. But as in my memo, we can adjust it to whatever we see appropriate. So, okay. So here's the original option 3 that was presented, and this is straightening the vehicle path, but your pedestrian path is still the 8-foot wide path. And so part of the constraint we have with this road is there's pinch points. We don't have a full 24 feet to keep lanes consistently. So in this scenario, you have a consistent 8-foot wide pedestrian path, and the vehicle side would narrow and get bigger in different areas. But we did straighten it out here, and then again, raise the speed limit. So that's basically option 3. And then option 5 is where you would have, at some points, you'd have a 10-foot wide pedestrian pathway, 2-way traffic, and for bicycles. And at some points it narrows down to about 8 feet. And then you can get back up to 10 and back down to 8, but your vehicle traffic will stay consistently about 11 feet wide for vehicles, which is generally your minimum that you want there. And we also looked at different delineator options that you can put here. For buffer between the pedestrians and the vehicles. I think we talked about, they do discuss in the memo and stuff about concerns with the retaining wall or doing boulders. But something a little more flexible might be a little bit better, but there's a few options that they listed in the presentation of the options here. So, any questions on that?
So when I was on Zoom, I think at one point, when this was being discussed, kind of the supposed to be last of the last. But this did come up. What I couldn't hear very well, and I'd love to hear from Planner Kivett, because I believe this was a lot of your idea. Could you explain why you felt that this was the best?
Sure, yeah. Great question, Mayor Pro Tem. So I was uncomfortable as a cyclist and a driver with what was presented as our selected alternative at that time. And so I just thought, what else could what other ideas could I think of? And so, and I also looked at other jurisdictions to see whether they had two-way sharrows, because that was the selected alternative was bicycles two-way, including with the traffic and against the traffic. Which is very disquieting. So, narrowing the lane down as much as we possibly could, the traffic lane for vehicles as much as possible, which Tracy said is 11 feet.
Correction, 10 feet, Tim corrected me,
Oh,
it's 10
10
feet,
feet,
but it
okay.
is 10 feet at one point on this, so
Okay.
we get to as narrow as we can.
As narrow as 10. My thought was just to come up with as wide of a multi-use lane as possible that would accommodate bicycles, pedestrians, golf cars, everything. And it would be buffered. And that's where the idea of that kind of cool buffer concept comes in right there. I had originally said something like sandstone blocks just because we have sandstone, but those are really neat looking. And that would give comfort to both drivers and to users of the multi-use path to have a buffer like that. It would still allow for, if you were a cyclist and you wanted to ride westbound on Railroad with the traffic, but we'd encourage everyone to use the multi-use lane. And for eastbound and
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
East and west.
East and west, sure,
Sure.
yeah.
Other questions?
I have one more then. So the two boxes up at the top, those are called chicanes?
No,
not
those
on
are
this one.
bollards.
Bollards.
Yeah.
Is that a suggestion of both of them or one or the other?
I think that was one or the other.
And the bottom ones, does that have a reflection?
I don't know, I could check into that. I think the point is they're like flexible.
Right,
And they're all different types of flexible delineators that you can do, and they need to be a certain height, so that, the trucks and stuff can see them as well.
Okay.
But the point of doing something a little more flexible, essentially narrowing the road, and I think one of the concerns from the Evans neighborhood is that they didn't want the big box trucks and stuff coming down Evans. So you still want to be somewhat accommodating,
Yep.
make them feel like they can get through there without hitting anything. And so if they were to bump into something flexible, it's a
Wasn't
little
the
bit easier to get. And then, if there's any emergency vehicle has to go through there.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I know it doesn't happen very often, but we do get snow and we have to plow. Will a plow be able to go down that road without destroying those? Would be my question, I guess. I mean, you might not know the answer, it's just something I just thought of.
Right, our plows don't have to be over 10, but we're not having CDOT plows go through it.
So like the sidewalk plows would work on the bike lane.
I'm just curious, like, I know the trucks go down there and go to the post office, it would have to be plowed, so that's all.
And that site is icy.
Yeah.
It's always in the shade.
That's
The south side.
That's the question. So I'm curious about which option is the most consistent with what is elsewhere in Lyons, because I worry about confusing people with this one stretch. if it's not consistent with everything else.
I think generally our trails in town, are they 8 foot wide?
Well, the rest of this multimodal will be 10 foot. And so this would match that all the way down and out to,
Because I feel like in the rest of town, most golf carts are with the vehicles. They're actually in the vehicle lane.
well, yeah, in a road.
Right. So here in option 5, it sounds like the golf carts would be in the multi-use lane as opposed to the vehicle lane. Is that right?
That's the whole purpose of the multi-purpose lane we're putting throughout 36. Is that golf cars can go on it with bikes and peds because it's 10 feet wide.
It'll take some education, I think, but you know, we can have a sign on either end. You know, people will get used to it.
The golf cart and an arrow.
Yeah.
Stay in the right now.
So you're gonna have 10 feet from Fifth Avenue or Highway 36, all the way down to about the fire station, and then you're gonna neck down to about 8. Come back to 10 and down to 8, and then the trail here, I believe is 8 foot wide. So,
And coming from Broadway, then if you're thinking of that new lane that will be there, the new cyclist. So that's basically a cyclist lane, or it is a multimodal pedestrian cyclist, not golf cart because it's a highway. But it's only one direction.
Not golf carts.
the multimodal trail is for golf carts, bicycles, and pedestrians.
Okay,
There is not gonna be a bicycle lane in the road.
okay.
It's
And
up-
so, I'm just curious how it aligns with this. So does it mean that on the section west of here, then on Broadway, it will also be both directions then for cyclists and pedestrians and golf carts? And so there is enough room then with 10 feet, I guess, for
10 feet allows 2 golf carts.
2 golf carts? Okay. And all of these options, the speed limit is adjusted to 15 or?
We just did for the presentation, we can up it to 20. and That's the preference, 25.
We were trying to message that you need to go slower than a standard residential
Well,
street
and it-
because it's close, you're sharing.
And I think so, you know, school zones are 15, right?
Mhm.
So it makes sense to me to have it the same speed limit as a school zone because there's,
And to be honest, our side streets are 20 miles an hour anyway.
Yes,
So
and this is just kind of giving the messaging, slow down a bit, but we made it, listening to, you know, the residents that were here saying they wanted the majority of traffic to remain, to be able to go westbound. on this.
Mhm.
we can always revisit the speed limit too,
yeah,
Right,
at any point.
yeah.
thoughts, any other thoughts?
I guess my main concern is consistency. The other is also not giving people an option. So I guess this has been one of my concerns from the beginning is, especially local residents, I don't think that transient traffic will notice this, but local residents will know that the highway is limited to 25, that this is limited to 15, and Evans is limited to 20. So I guess my concern is, you know, people wanting to go quickly through town, they'll choose the fastest. So I just don't know that they're gonna choose the slowest option. So I worry about residents on Evans and how they're gonna feel about it not being equally the same speed.
Well, let's see it, yeah. I mean, that's a valid concern and, you know, the nice thing about speed limit changes is they're easy to implement, so we
Yeah.
can see how it goes.
Sure.
Higher than 5.
Yes, that didn't seem realistic at all, but I feel much more comfortable with
Or
it,
0, I mean, if we closed
Right.
it entirely.
right? Oh, boy.
The marathon one is 13 miles per hour.
Ah.
You did?
Take a marathon. to
A
watch.
marathon. Wow. Okay, well, it looks like we, thank you very much for that. So we'll make the decision during the general business item on that, and, it's like we can take a break until your 7 o'clock meeting starts. Good, thank you. Great.
Is it okay if we're
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I will call the Monday, April 17th, 2023 Town of Lyons Board of Trustees meeting to order. Can we please have the roll call, Clerk Vasquez?
Yes, Mayor Rogan,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Farrell,
Present.
Trustee Elson,
Present.
Trustee Dottie,
Present.
Trustee Edding,
Present.
Trustee Delman,
Present.
and Trustee Williams.
All right, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. We'll take a reflective moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. So now is the time for audience business. If you'd like to speak to the board, we'd love to hear from you. You'll have 3 minutes and we'll ask your name and address for the record. So I'll ask if anybody in the room would like to speak first before I go to the folks online. Come on up.
Hello.
Hi. Yep, your name and address, please.
My name is Fi. I'm, what's an address?
Your resident?
Oh,
Where do you live?
So I'm 201, Spring Gulch currently, yes. So I'm really excited to be here tonight and to be in this wonderful city of Lyons. And, I've never done this before. So this is great. And I've met some of you and some of you I haven't. But I'm really excited tonight because on the agenda tonight is the proclamation of Beyond Word. And the kind of the spirit behind this whole proclamation and really the whole weekend of May 5th through the 7th is about people being with each other and just celebrating our like existing in this space together. And it's just come a long way, and now it's just time for us to celebrate and be with one another. And it's also a creative celebration. So blank slate, a blank slate for people to create whatever they want to create in. So this is really an opportunity for everyone to kind of, basically by making the proclamation, we're saying, hey, it's okay. We can be self-expressed. We can be free to create and collaborate together. It's like an official, like, hey, cool, let's like go to town and create whatever the hell we want to create, you know? So thank you for just sitting here and being you. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
so
Anybody else in the room? Hey, Mr. Sullivan, I see you have your hand up. You're up.
I do. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Neil Sullivan, 7 Eagle Nest Lane, co-founder of Spirit Hound Distillers. I want to start out just say thank you, all of you, for your service. It's critically important what you're doing on this board. It's very underappreciated by many, and it's not a desired role by many. So thank you. In my remaining 3 minutes, I want to start by saying that Spirit Hound has been in Lyons on Highway 66 for 11 years. Spirit Hound continues to grow and contribute significant direct sales tax revenue for the town and significant indirect sales tax revenue by drawing visitors to our distillery destination. Our owners and staff are mostly residents of Lyons, and our businesses is in the process of investing $5 to $10 million over the next few years to stay in Lyons. We're very interested and excited about a mutually beneficial and long-term relationship with our town. My comments tonight are specific to your workshop topic on the trail system. To summarize first, in case I run out of time, option A, working with the ditch company, is the only option Spirit Hound is in favor of. Option B, taking over or taking down Clark's building as a business owner, anything sounding like or acting like eminent domain is pretty scary and not business friendly unless it's an emergency situation. Options C, the worst one for our business, going through Spirit Hound property to nowhere, would cut our leased property at least in half, cut our economic opportunity significantly, as we use that leased property almost every day of the week for a core part of our business. Option D, which I'll throw out here, would be that if Spirit Hound could be in favor of foregoing the back 15 feet of their inside leased property, if Clark's was willing to either lease their back lease to us, or if there was a situation in the future where Spirit Hound was able to either work directly with Clark's or with the town to utilize that property while giving up property inside the existing Spirit Hound leased property, if that makes sense. We've talked with our neighbors down there, none of whom are in favor of the current plan C. Again, the best option is on the ditch property. I would strongly recommend that you don't look for a cheap, inexpensive, quick fix, that you look for the long-term kind of legacy view of this project. Find the money, spend the money, do it right, put it on the ditch property, if that clearly is the best option, and it'll be a great legacy and a great trail.
Okay. Thank you. Your time is up. Look forward to talking about this with you more, I hope, and appreciate your input. Thank you. Is there anybody else on the Zoom who'd like to comment to the board tonight? No? Okay. Don't see any. So we'll go on to the proclamation. And we'll get you a copy of this.
Cool.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. A proclamation by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons recognizing the Beyond Words weekend, May 5th, 2023 to May 7th, 2023. Whereas the Town of Lyons Board of Trustees greatly values self-expression in the arts, and whereas residents of the Town of Lyons recognize and embrace that self-expression and arts of all forms are integral to our community's unique character, physical health, and mental and emotional well-being. And whereas the Town of Lyons Board of Trustees wishes to encourage public participation in arts of all forms. And whereas the Town of Lyons Board of Trustees recognizes that celebrating art for art's sake benefits us all. Now therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons hereby proclaims May 5th through 7th, 2023 as Beyond Words Weekend, and encourages all to participate in creating art and embracing self-expression. Given under my hand and seal of the Town of Lyons, the 17th day of April, 2023, Holly Rogan, Mayor. Thanks. Okay, and we'll move on to the Boulder County Sheriff's Office report.
Hello, good
Evening.
evening. Not a whole lot,
so far, we've handed out about 125 of the Cadillac converter etching kits. So they're scheduled Mondays and Thursdays at the substation between noon and 5, if they're registered online. I know Bill had talked about the sign he's getting made for the substation. So the proof should be done on that soon, and then should take about 4 to 6 weeks. It's about a 2x2 foot aluminum old 1800 style sheriff badge. So, and then I know Dave with Public Works is working on better signage for the substation because everyone keeps coming to town hall, so that'll get fixed hopefully soon. So just a quick update on all the graffiti cases. I went through all from 2021 to current, and there's about 23 different cases all around, mostly at Bone Park, under the bridges, a few at Laverne Johnson. Out of those, I've got 12 cases that I was able to link to 3 different groups or suspects. So eventually they're going to get caught, and then I can go back and tag on as many as you can for them. So I know it's becoming a nuisance. Public Works guys spent like 3 days cleaning up the one off 4th and Evans. So it's only a matter of time. So we'll catch them. And then just for quick stats, last 4 weekends, there's in and out of town, there were about 71,000 cars. So it's slowly starting to go up a little bit from the last few weekends or before this. And then on Saturday and Sunday, it's about the same, 35,000 on Saturday and then 36,000 on Sunday. So I'm guessing that'll probably double here in the summer months. That's about it for any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Sergeant Sears? No, not tonight. You're off the hook. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Okay, staff reports, administrators report.
Thank you. It's several different updates in your packet, so I'll just highlight a couple. It was mentioned during our workshop about CDOT improvements along Highway 36. And so I wanted to let you know what they've told us. And basically they're getting ready to do a project that will go all the way from J Road to Apple Valley Road. And it will be restriping the entire length of that area. And for us, it says they will be reducing travel lanes from 12 feet to 11 feet to widen the shoulders for bike lanes between 66 and 2nd Avenue. If you can picture that. And then from 5th Avenue to Apple Valley Road. So they won't be adjusting anything downtown at this point. They do think that narrowing the lanes will also help with vehicle speeds along that route. And that our portion is painting, so they think they can be in and out, but it will be over the summer. Want to congratulate Director Mitchell. She was awarded, wrote and was awarded a tourism management grant award. So we'll be getting $18,000 toward wayfinding, which we had budgeted for. So that will help offset that cost. Want to remind people again, and it's been going out in the e-blast, the newsletters, our websites, the paper. April, we do have dog licensing. That's a requirement of anyone with a dog here in town. You need to get your dog licensed by the town. You will need proof of vaccinations for that, for rabies. This is the first year we're starting golf car registration. There is not a fee for that. We're just trying to help people to understand golf cars registered. So if we see them abandoned or without owners and we need to move them, we know who to contact. Also making sure that people have understand the rules, have the map of where you can and cannot be, those sorts of things. So that is now available online. And then next weekend, Saturday, April 27th, there's lots of activity going on at our new Public Works facility. There's the limb drop-off events, a Board of Trustees meet and greet,
picking up your bear-proof containers if you signed up for those. All of that will be occurring in the morning on Saturday.
That's this Saturday, April 22nd, correct?
Yes. We are working on, a Main Street lighting project I mentioned, but this will add ambient or what do you call the lighting? Runway lighting on the 300 block of Main Street, which means it goes parallel to the highway. And then, looking at getting bids for stringing all of the major trees on the 400 block with lights that can be changed for the different seasons. So that is, did he get that out for bid?
Yes.
So it is out for bid now. So hopefully it said bids will be accepted until May 10th. So we'll be bringing it to you the second meeting in May. We also found out Ride the Rockies is going to come through Lyons this year on June 16th. So there's a map in your packet on that. They'll end their leg at Bowen Park this year. So that will be a lot of activity for town that day as well. And then you're going to be seeing a new program rolled out this week called the Bark Rangers. And it's a way to use local residents and dogs having the resident and the dog having good behavior and emanating that throughout our park system and talking with people and acknowledging to them, you know, thank you for being on the leash when it's more positive reinforcement. It is not going to be any kind of confrontations or directing or, you know, anything like that. They'll notify code enforcement if they see people not, but it's really a way to try to use positive reinforcement to people that are showing good dog on leash behavior. And then last of all, we just want to let people know that starting on Wednesdays, we will be flushing hydrants. So if that is in your neighborhood, it is not unusual for that to break up sediment in the pipes and you might have brown water for a while or some rust or sediment. If that happens, just run your cold water. Usually can be flushed through in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes. So just want to let people know that's happening. So don't do anything you're expecting clear water for on a Wednesday in your neighborhood if you see them out there. And I think that's it. Is there any questions on any of the reports that were in my packet?
Any questions?
On the ride, the Rockies,
Yeah.
will we be having any overnight camping? Are they asking for anything like that?
No, they are, they are just ending their leg here that I know of. They go on to Fort Collins yet that day.
Oh,
So
They're just blowing
some people end here, I guess, if you don't want to take that last, you know, the next 40 miles. But I believe they continue on from here. It's just that will be a major stop for a lot of people. Good point, though. We will, I'll find out a little bit more about that.
okay. I was just curious if we needed to make accommodations for
Extra
extra
camping.
camping.
Yeah, and that you could actually even almost do that on Bone Park Fields if you wanted to. So yeah, let me find out a little bit more. They just came out and confirmed it would be on the route. So now we'll start working with them in more detail.
Anyone else?
In the documents, there's a short-term rental
Yes,
presentation. What's the motivation and what's happening
with that.
with that?
The planning commission had wanted to review our short-term rental regulations from a couple different perspectives. One was, should there be different standards for short-term rentals in a commercial zone? And then we've recently had requests for more than one per property.
Mhm.
And so it just basically spurred some questions that we needed. It's been a few years since we adopted those. And they wanted to take a look at, is there any updating they want to recommend to the board? So they invited a DOLA representative who is now working specifically on short-term rentals to come and present. It's a great presentation if you haven't had a minute to look at it. I don't know if you want to say anything more if you're at that meeting.
I was gonna just say in my trustee reports, but you're really covering
Oh,
the overall gist of it. No, it's okay. those were the reasons is that there seems to be some more interest in it. And is this something that we want to adjust? So we got the pros and the cons from DOLA. And we formed a subcommittee to consider it further.
Yeah. And then they also indicated to us there are many more STRs that they have documentation of than what we have registered. So there's work to be done. So they are going to form a committee to look at it and make recommendations on updating our code.
And
I have a question regarding the visitor center staff position.
Yes.
So I understand that it's open now to applications, so
Yeah.
please apply if you're interested. Do you know when that job position will be closed?
When we have
Posting.
appropriate applicants, it'll be open until filled.
Okay,
So we did get another one today. So I know they have 2 interviews scheduled,
okay,
but it will of course depend on everyone's schedule since it's primarily weekends. And you
Right.
can't expect one person to want to work every weekend.
sure.
So it will be until filled.
Do you know how many positions you're hoping to fill?
At this point, we're just trying to get the weekend covered.
Okay,
If that can carry over into Mondays and Fridays, that would be awesome. But right now it's budgeted for, I think it's a total of, could be up to 25 hours a week. Usually that's a matter of 2 or 3 people covering those.
okay.
other questions?
I have one final one. When do you expect to have a camp host for Bone Park?
Oh, they're all hired.
Oh,
Yeah, they're all
okay.
hired. We have new hosts coming to Bone Park. One new set coming to Laverne Johnson. Karen and Carrie will be staying at Laverne Johnson. So they are set, the second set of hosts are scheduled to arrive, I believe. They've indicated May 6th or 16th, around there. I know they're doing their training on the 16th.
Great.
So.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, finance was in there as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. I should just report that finance, if you recall, last month, our sales tax was a little behind.
Yes.
And it made some people nervous, but this month made up for that. So we are back in line with where we projected to be and in line with what we budgeted and expected. So I'm not going to go through the rest of that report. Everything, this early in the year is where we expect it to be. And sales tax by locals versus none are also staying very consistent. 51% are local sales tax payers and 49% are out of town this month again.
Great. Okay, so we'll move on to ordinances and public hearings. And tonight we have one first reading, ordinance 1145. Regarding the International Building Code 2021. Director Kaplan.
Mayor and trustees, good evening. So we have had some discussion on this at the last meeting under the general business to get an idea of what we would include in this. You were the same board that was around last fall when we did do the 2018 International Building Codes. So may remember having some idea of what's involved in that code. Again, it is a suite of codes. There are about 13 books that each deal with different aspects of building, and property maintenance is in there. There's a plumbing, a mechanical, a fire code, each having their own set of rules and regulations with regard to that aspect of construction or maintaining a property. And so when I saw it was talked about whether we should go up to the 2021 or just stick with the 2018, and it was asked to look into that. So we did look into the 2021 code. The big one that has some differences is the International Energy Conservation Code, which deals with things like how much insulation do you need? How are you going to make the building more energy efficient, which is a big concern we all hear about in a number of areas. Otherwise, the codes are all set by this International Code Council. And those are the ones putting together the actual building code. And then the town looks at those codes and decides, are there certain things that they do or do not want to include from those codes? So most of the information you have on there for the exceptions will be things like putting in the town of Lyons in place of jurisdiction, but also some items. We were concerned about fences over 6 feet instead of 7 feet. So there are a number of changes in there that might talk with the 6-foot fence. I had another one in there, but most of those exceptions are ones that are being brought up from the 2018. So we checked to see if there are any concerns from the 2021 to the 2018 based on our changes. Oh, another one was wind speed. The town of Lyons had adopted 140-mile-per-hour wind speed. So we wanted to make sure we kept that into the next round of code. The one slight difference or complication is with the International Fire Code. The International Fire Code is actually adopted by the Fire Protection District of that municipality. And then the town is asked to ratify what that fire district adopts. And they can then make changes if they want to that. So you might notice we do have a separate resolution later on in the evening on ratifying the fire department's adoption of the 2021 International Fire Code. And I had asked to put that under general business so that there could be discussion if there are any questions on the legal aspects of why you do that, how that is slightly different. As you all know, the ordinance tonight is the first reading, so you will have time, changes can be made during the second reading. The International Fire Code, with regard to being in the ordinance, is really just stating we would like to list something in our municipal code that documents what fire code we had. Currently, you cannot find it in there. It's very difficult to know. You would have to call. So we just wanted to list in there the International Fire Code version the town is using is the 2021. Then we can have a link, however we want to do it with the resolution. But that International Fire Code then will be discussed later. And if there are concerns or questions on what you want in the International Fire Code, it is something to talk about later on this evening in that general business, because that ratification would really be taking effect after the resolution is passed. You can always make changes, but then you would have another resolution to make those changes. So I wanted to document that difference. We did not hear any real feedback on the code adoption as it was presented. Staff does feel that it would be in the town's interest to go ahead and move forward with that. Again, during the discussion, I wanted to try to present both sides, some of the concerns that you might find from business or different aspects as we talked about potentially for affordable housing, other aspects. But it did sound like most of that in the end was, we don't want to necessarily make these type of decisions at a lesser code level. You know, we don't want to make it that might not be as safe or it might not be as efficient, which would be better off long-term for something. So there are no extra exceptions in there at this point, and not having heard any exceptions requested from any of the board, at least to me as a staff person. And that's and I tried to put in the background information there that's copied from the actual International Code Council, the actual, what they consider to be some of the significant changes in the 2021 codes versus the 2018. So you can see again, our ordinance is really talking about some of these exceptions, some of the legal things that need to be updated to make that code enforceable by the town of Lyons. But in here in the background information is really where you find some of the changes from 2018 to 2021. And that was in that presentation.
All right, questions?
Did you do any comparisons with Longmont? Did they make any exceptions that you found interesting?
I did try to go through some. They have a lot more. I did also look though, then on to Erie was another one,
Okay.
and theirs is very similar to ours. I started looking at some, really looking at to be some of the smaller towns. I think I looked, Netherland is not up to the 2021, but the size of them looked like they were in relation to what we have, and a lot of the same ones, almost line for line. At first, I wondered if we took it from Erie back in the day, years ago, but looking at Longmont, again, they can get very specific, I think, because of some of the specifics that they have.
Mhm.
Right, we're not worried as much about larger buildings.
Yeah,
We have
something
a number
unique
of
to
other
them.
ones, but I did not find anything that really stood out.
Okay.
I was curious, was there anything that stood out to you that is interesting or different for ADUs and tiny houses?
I didn't read through those directly. And so I know there is a section of code that's specifically for the tiny homes that the town went out of its way when we were adopting the 2015. We actually went up and adopted the 2018 for tiny homes at that time previously. So going up to the 2021, it appeared to be, again, they didn't make any huge changes that stood out to me. And knowing that we wanted to go forward with the 2018 versus the 2015, it appeared like going with the 2021 followed in line with that. But I didn't see any specific ones.
Okay. And then I was wondering if you could address the 6-foot fence, actually. Because I did find it kind of interesting as well. Where is it on here? Of course, now I can't find it.
Right, there is an exception that says rather than a 7-foot fence, we change ours to 6 feet. I'm not sure that's been carried on the last 2 times I've been involved with it. So I don't know, Administrator Simonson, if you happen to remember discussion of the PCDC or concerns about from the public that 6 foot, higher than 6 foot, I could see being more of a concern as far as visually when you're looking at a fence. It does stand out more if it's 7 feet. Again, what we're putting in are the exceptions that are going to change what's there. And currently the code list in that location, it talks about permitting for anything over a 7-foot fence. And we require permitting for anything over a 6-foot fence. So that's the difference.
So we'll continue to ask for permits over 6 foot.
Correct.
That won't change, basically.
We can try to find out why. I just know that, you know, it's required to be higher than 6 foot if there's a swimming pool. And then the front yard needs to be 4 feet so that it's, you don't drive down the block and you can't see the front of any houses. But I don't know why they initially went 6 foot. I'd have to look that up or if that was the code at the time.
Okay.
And it's since been adjusted. We'll do one more work on that one.
And then I just was curious because we were required with the ball fields
Yes,
that those had to be, what, 12 feet?
yes.
That's just because we're a municipality or because it was a.
No, I
ball
think
field
it's
in
because it was a
particular?
ball field. I think it was a safety, public safety
Okay.
issue. The bigger issue with that fence was the wind speeds.
Right.
It was almost impossible to meet.
So that really has nothing to do with residential.
No.
Or commercial.
No, but let us take a look and see if we can find out some more before second reading.
And again, even the idea of the 4-foot fence in the front yard is not building code. That's planning, right? That's our zoning code and what we allow in permitting or require when you're doing it. This is specifically saying if you're gonna build a fence over 6 feet, we want you to go get a building permit.
Okay.
As opposed to the standard is that the international code, they require you to go get a permit. They say if you're building over 7 feet. So they were allowing an extra foot before you had to get the permit.
Okay.
So we have to look into why.
Might be wind speeds, but we'll find out.
And then there was something else in here that was in the memo. I didn't necessarily, I don't think I saw it in the actual ordinance, but parapets, a minimum height are required for aggregate surfaced roofs to prevent blow off. Isn't that basically like saying, put a wall on your roof? And does that, does that apply to us? And, that sounds really weird.
Where was, do you know where it was listed?
It's listed, it's actually on page 1 of your memo in the,
Very bottom.
background
Oh,
information, it's the
change.
last one.
Okay.
And the only reason I noticed it is because it's in the memo, it's not actually listed in the ordinance, and some of these things I don't, obviously like escape rooms at this time doesn't apply to us.
Right, because again, so this is going through all the thousands of pages of building rules in there.
Right,
And here they're documenting from 2018 to 2021, the section of code on parapet, which again, you probably haven't looked at it all because we don't deal with it, but it is in the international code for anyone adopting it. So they wanted to say in 2021, parapets of a minimum height are now required. So they're saying a parapet has to be a minimum height for aggregate surface roof.
what's an aggregate surface roof?
It would seem like those that have tar and then putting rock on top of them, like a garage, or you could picture some
Oh,
in cities and things where you've seen rock on the, so
flat top. We don't have that here.
I've not seen anyone and
We have a flat roof, but now it's aggregate.
Okay.
And now we probably won't.
Well, I just thought about houses and I wasn't sure that I understood that, and I thought that's really weird.
and again, there's probably a lot of code in there that without being a building official, you know,
Yeah.
and going to this, we're not gonna know the specifics on
Okay.
the code.
So I have a question. So, first of all, I'm glad you're bringing this to us. Thank you for doing that. I know that one of the concerns is that this is going to lead to higher cost building, right? Which, you know, for single family homes, you have so few single family lots and, you know, that's not so much of a concern, but when it comes to affordable housing, that is, I am concerned about that, you know, is moving to the 2021 code going to dampen someone's desire to build affordable housing in the town of Wise? And so I'm curious about whether other municipalities have come up with some exemptions for affordable housing builders, and if so, what those are. And if you don't know now, that's fine, but it would be good to know that before second reading.
I can look into that. And then I suppose part of the question is the two areas we see that really expense coming in that could be documented are fire suppression systems. And if we wanted to look at that, and then you balance out the life safety aspect of it, or looking into the energy efficiency, which is not so much a life safety, but maybe looked at. So like if those who want to push for more energy efficient are going to look to the environmental concerns, but also long-term costs versus the short-term costs for someone who developed it. So those would be the two areas I think we could look at.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what other towns have done. And I'm also curious to know how the SFC and EAB feel about the energy portion of this. So I don't know if they'll meet before second reading, but I think it would be good to get their input.
And I have reached out, I know that the SFC had seen it, I don't know if they had a chance to discuss it at their last meeting, there's been some discussion on. We have a commission and board chairs email list. I've been trying to verify if that's working properly, I did notify everyone through that in February. And then again, in March, all the boards and commissions I've heard from. One, that they did receive it and others, actually two, I guess, that did receive it, and I'm not sure, so we're looking into that, but hopefully they've all had a chance to at least be aware of it.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions before I ask for a motion? Okay, I would entertain a motion. A motion.
Oh.
Okay.
A motion to approve ordinance 1145 on the first reading. Sorry, I just lost it. Here it is. An ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, adopting the 2021 International Building Code Suite.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
My discussion is basically, that kind of came out of the questions is, I am interested on changes that could impact our ADUs and tiny houses. And I love your question about exemptions for affordable housing, if that's a possibility. So those, just as a direction, I'd love to have more input for a second.
Anyone else?
Just in light of the recent fire that happened last week and an entire family lost their home and their pets, I think there is something to be said about a sprinkler system in new residential dwellings. And I don't know, I feel like there's a reason why there are these updates, these important changes in the code. And I just think that this family were here now, they might support sprinkler systems for their future home to avoid this kind of tragedy. So
Thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else? I think this is great work. Thank you. I'll call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Everyone? All right. Clerk Vasquez, would you please read consent into the record?
Yes, item 1 is resolution 2023-24, the resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, ratifying the Board of Trustees' decision authorizing the mayor to execute all agreements and to perform all other actions necessary to join additional Colorado opioid settlements. Item 2 is resolution 2023-25, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, in opposition to the statewide land use and zoning preemptions in Senate Bill 23-213. Item 3 is resolution 2023-26, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Fourth Amendment to the professional services agreement with N-Line Electric LLC. Item 4 is resolution 2023-27, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Sixth Amendment to the professional services agreement with Consort Engineers, Inc. for on-call engineering services. Item 5 are the April 3rd, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting minutes, and item 6 are the April accounts payable.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Anybody like to pull anything from consent?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, it's the same one. I'm sure it's the same one.
I don't know, it's number 4, resolution 23-27.
Yeah, the Black Bear Hole.
Okay, and then I actually want to briefly pull 2023-25. So that's number 2. All right. We will vote on consent as amended.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay. Trustee Edding, Mayor Pro Tem, who wants to take it?
You go first.
Black Bear Hole.
Yeah, but you go.
Yeah, I'm just, it's very curious. They've come back and asked for some additional money. I understand that we picked Black Bear Hole because they were we didn't pick Black Bear Hole. We picked this firm because they were the lowest bidder, right?
No,
Well,
that isn't.
That's not
Generally,
true.
with professional services, that's not how it works. It works based on qualifications. It's not based on their fee.
Yeah.
However, there was added scope to that project that they went over they did give us an estimate of what it's gonna cost to do that work.
okay.
But we added scope with added more design and construction over there.
Okay, so we added scope.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, and that was valid to add that scope and everything?
Yes,
All right,
Yeah.
okay, and there's budget for this, that's okay?
yes, it's all funded through GoCo and the town share, yeah. Mhm.
All right, I'm good.
But the concern is that it seems like just a few months ago, we did a closeout. Like we passed something that said we were literally done and they were done.
We accepted the asset. But we're still closing out the funding side and the expenses, but we accepted the asset. It's the construction spend, but not the financial side of it.
So I assumed at that time, I maybe didn't understand that. I thought that was also closing out the funding, the. So all along, we were planning with the additional scope that this was gonna come from, basically, it's the conservation fund, right? GoCo, or is that different?
Yeah, we had a GoCo grant and then the town had a share and then we had some donations. So it's part of a project budget that we had and it's within that budget. We actually have a savings in the end that we're
Okay,
trying to finish up. So this was work completed a while ago,
right.
but then we wanted to make this amendment and we still have to send one more invoice and then I can close out the grant.
Yeah, so maybe I can help too. When you, you accepted the public improvements. And that was so that we could close out the contractor's work. So he could advertise for bid, make sure everybody was paid, then we accepted that it was acceptable to us. So that's for the construction aspect. This is the professional engineering. And it was a little late in probably submitting that bid though, that amount, right?
Yeah, it took a while for them to send that. I knew they were at an overrun and asking, but it took a while for them to get it to us, but
So
it
they
was,
should have had this to us more timely, but they're two different aspects. One's finishing the physical project so that the contractor can close out. And then this is the professional services, so the grant can close out.
So are you expecting anything else then after this 14,000? Was there one more?
nope, well, I just need the invoice. So we had to amend the contract with that added budget and now they can bill us for it.
Okay.
Once we amend the contract and then I can submit the last reimbursement request with GoCo.
Which is this?
Yep.
Okay. Great, that's all I needed. Thank you.
You satisfied? Okay. Yeah, great. So let's, then I would entertain a motion on resolution 2023-27.
I motion to approve resolution 2023-27, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Sixth Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with Consort Engineers Incorporated, previously known as Murray Smith Incorporated, for on-call engineering services.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I pulled item 2 simply because on the consent agenda, the title of the resolution itself doesn't match what's on consent. So on consent, it says in opposition to the statewide land use and rezoning preemptions in Senate Bill 23-213. And oh my gosh, no, it does say the same thing. Okay, never mind. Can I withdraw my pull from consent? I've had a long day.
They'll still.
Is
need
that
to
okay?
approve it.
Attorney Dittman,
Yes.
I withdraw. the motion. Okay. So I. but
Sorry, I
will
couldn't
enter-
find my unmute quick enough, but yeah, you can withdraw,
Okay, so then that has passed on consent.
No, you'll need to approve it for consent.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-25. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Discussion? No vote. Sorry about that,
That
everybody.
motion passes unanimously.
That's okay, give this.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn as the Board of Trustees and reconvene as the Lions Liquor Licensing Authority?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote on that.
And that motion passes unanimously.
All right, so we have modification of premise application for Marigold 405 Main Street Unit B. Is there a staff report for this?
Yeah, I tried to write up a comprehensive cover page on this. Marigold would like to extend their licensed premise to include about 195 square feet of patio service to be able to have outdoor seating. The entanglement with this was that is CDOT right of way. So it took a little bit of time, but we did get a completed application. In the lease that was attached, they've got a lease agreement with CDOT, which also incorporates an easement because we don't own that sidewalk. The town doesn't. Typically, your licensed premise has to be contiguous. It has to be connected to your premise, since this is not. But CDOT did grant them that easement, which means they have a very specialized place where they can transport the alcohol, if you will. There'll be no drinking on the sidewalk. They can't just hang out there. They'll have control of the premise areas. Typically, this does not call for a public hearing. The board can approve a modification of premise unless the board chooses to have a public hearing. That's why I brought this before you. This is not a contentious issue, so the board is free to approve it as is. If the board did decide that you'd want to hear public feedback on this, we would then have to reschedule for the first meeting in May, and then that would push it back for posting reasons and stuff. But I've worked with Theo. He's got everything lined up. The lease was approved by CDOT. That happened a little faster than he was hoping to. So he would really like to just get this up and running now that the weather's turning nice. I believe that's everything on my end, and I know he was going to hop on if anyone had any questions for him as well.
Any questions for Clerk Vasquez?
I just had one question. Is that 4 feet, is that considered ADA appropriate?
That was also incorporated into the CDOT lease, and Theo was going to make sure that they'd be able to accommodate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my only question.
Any questions for Theo since I see him on the line? Okay. Is anybody on the authority wanting to hold a public hearing on the matter? No? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the application for the modification of licensed premises for Marigold Lions LLC based on the findings set forth in the staff report, and to direct town staff to notify the state of Colorado Liquor Enforcement Division of this approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just like to say, I think it's worth highlighting that this is a really great example of how town staff and the board trustees are respecting our comp plan guidelines on how to retain businesses in Lyons by being business friendly. So this is a really easy way to accommodate needs. It also benefits us with an increase in sales tax revenue. I can't imagine how many tables they can add at 195 square feet, but I know that they're very popular, they're very busy, and I say let's increase our sales tax revenue.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well said. Anyone else?
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Congratulations, Theo. Looking forward to seeing you on the sidewalk.
Love you guys. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn as the liquor licensing authority and convene as the board of trustees? So moved. There's a second?
Second.
Discussion? No. Okay.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Everybody. All right. Next up, we have boards and commissions, and so it is my great pleasure to appoint Claudia Keene to the Housing and Human Services Commission. Hey, thank you very much, Claudia, who continues to give so much time and energy and talent to this town. Thank you. And then we have an update from our LEHC.
Is this subgroup?
Yeah. Subgroup of the LEHC.
I am not officially on the LAHC, but I'm part of this group here today or this evening. My name's Patty McNichol, and you know Crystal, and this is Christine Knapp at the end. And
Jerry.
Oh, and Jerry's back there too.
We see you, Jerry, and we see Laverne up there too.
We see Laverne. So Crystal has passed this out, and did they get one before?
This is the revision
of
of
revised.
today. Okay, it just has a couple other ideas on the back.
And if you all had a chance to read through this, which I'm sure you did, I'm not going to go through some of the how we got here parts. I know you have a lot to do. But I would point out that Christine has brought her maquette here this evening so that you can see it. We have discussed many places where we might post this, and I not post. Install, thank you, not being an art person. Install this. The first one you saw was the this little niche in the back, at, Laverne Johnson Park, but we did have some feedback that that was possibly in the flood zone. And also the point of vandalism came up, which was something I hadn't really thought about before. We talked about that as a group. So Crystal then, for just a couple of other examples of what we might do, added these two pictures of the sculpture standing outside here in one of two places. These are just ideas to show you what this would look like, and I think your thoughts about having Laverne looking at the building and, you know, the park behind her, as good rationale. But I don't know that we have finally decided that, you know, where it's going to be. And we're getting for lots of input. Yeah, lots of input.
We got some input about, how about the courtyard at, both the LAHC presentation and at the
art opening.
At the art opening, that Christine Knapp, who's a local sculptor of renowned, and she's a bronze sculptor. And do you want to say something about your little maquette?
Sure, because of her son Jerry, I have had many references, lifelike references, to go from. And I did a lot of research into what she did for the town. I knew her in passing, not as well as probably most of you knew her. But I did know that she loved coming to meetings like this. I know that she loved talking on the microphone and giving her point of view, all in the name of helping the town of Lyons. And so what I decided to do is pull all of those things together, her dedication, her perseverance, her tenacity, and her professionalism, and put her in an outfit that she wore a lot, that was flattering to her, and a pose that I thought was typical of her. Now, what you see here is, you know, a very small miniature. I'll make her 5'2", but by the time it gets through the bronze process, it'll shrink to 5 foot, which is still taller than what she was. And the face will have authentic features. Right now, the face is very rough, but the whole idea is that it exemplifies her and shows as an example to all the visitors we've had here and to all the people who knew her about what it's like to be a responsible member of our community. And we wanted that to be a great example. And then in the bottom of that, we're going to put her phrase, I keep getting this mixed up again, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And so we thought it would be inspiring. And that's the whole point. We want to inspire as many people as possible. Any thoughts on that, Jerry?
Jerry and Ron have provided a lot of input.
Well, first thing, wherever we posted, my first reaction, we don't want these graffiti clowns get to my mother.
No, you don't.
And, she was on the board for like, 13 years. And the other reason she wasn't on it longer was because of term limits and old age. Then she was going after my dad, who was on the board for 18 years on that. And so when we're talking about, originally I was thinking we might be doing it in the park. So my mother, when she was a young girl, she was watching the high school baseball team play, and she got hit in the head. And they took her to the hospital to see if she had a concussion. And her mother, my grandma, said, I heard the siren, but she had no idea that that was her daughter, Laverne. Then when she was like, I was probably like 12 or 13, she was probably like 36, 37. So she was helping coach this junior high team. And I was kind of part of that too. I was, on the team. And
So the idea to make it look like a live situation, so she was lobbing at the ball and the head coach, he was hitting it, kind of like a live situation, hit it to the first base, hit it to the outfielders, or pretend like they bunt and they just pretend like it was a real game. Well, one time he hit it right up the middle, hit it right in the face.
Oh, my gosh.
And so she was swollen up for like 2 or 3 weeks. And even when she was telling me just before she passed, that even her front teeth is still numb. So I guess my main concern, let's just make sure we put her in a place where she won't get hit for the first time.
So not outside the ball field. Not outside. So, well, this,
Also got, the shoes, a belt, and her eyeglasses that will be cast from her original.
oh, great.
That's really cool.
That's great. And you've seen her thrown,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We thought about
bronzing
that,
that,
but,
yeah.
Well, I honestly, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I really like having it back there. I feel like she's keeping us all honest.
Mhm.
Sure.
yeah.
Well, this is wonderful. Does anyone have questions? Go ahead.
I have a question, and thank you for bringing this to the forefront. I know we've all been waiting for this to happen since Memorial last year. So I guess question number one, to answer Jerry's concern, is do we have a security camera out front facing the courtyard?
No,
No, okay. So
not yet.
not yet, right? So I really love the idea of her being in the courtyard. It sounds so fitting, so
Yes.
appropriate. But Jerry, I would definitely recommend putting out a security camera, just to ward off any potential vandals. I do, and I love that you're going to use the quote, lead, follow, or get out of the way, because that's one of my favorite quotes. I love that was Laverne's. So I think that is really inspiring. I have a question around funding. So it sounds like the statue or the sculpture itself will be about $40,000. And it sounds like you're fundraising about $150,000. So I'm curious as to where the extra 90,000 go. What does the extra 90,000 cover?
Do you want me to? Yeah, part of it, I think Crystal, has a picture here of a potential setting, shall we say? Oh, you have the big one,
Kind
okay.
of considering a keystone paver, keystone, whatever it's called, keyhole. And this would be a fundraiser where these bricks would be sold. And people would have their names, or they could give a tribute to Laverne or whatever. And the funding, I've seen these go for like $200 each. The brick per brick cost is about $5. And if we can find somebody local, we won't have to deal with the shipping of these things.
Shipping credit.
So this is something in progress. But Jerry and Ron have already earmarked a third.
14, yeah.
And so landscaping, benches, we were thinking that benches facing her saying, with that saying, lead, follow, get out of the way, that they're taking direction. And that maybe there's landscaping that will be needed or something like that. So what else? was
Well, we
there?
also wanted to have an interpretive board
Oh,
out
that's
there.
right.
Sure.
That we can have pictures of her and.
And those varying.
And, right, those will vary in cost.
So I'm curious though, if we were to install her here in the courtyard, wouldn't that reduce some of those costs? Because there's already stones, and there's already benches, and maybe there would be an interpretive panel, but.
Potentially it could.
Because it would be great to, have a legacy board or something with photos and things and a little bit of history, but I feel like the main feature is the statue, right?
So I wonder, if staff has any, considerations about installing that in the courtyard.
You know, we have, we've had several pieces of art in our courtyard, and then we've gone some time without any. And I've been looking forward to one, and I can't imagine one that would be more appropriate than Mrs. Laverne here.
Yeah.
So I would certainly welcome it. Staff hasn't talked about it yet. But we meet tomorrow. I'll see if there's any other input, but I think it's very appropriate. We'd love it.
We've also spoken with Christine about realities of completion date. And wouldn't it be cool if we could send us this at the anniversary of her, at least the service and the burden job.
Is that a possibility?
That's soon.
What,
Yes, I can do that.
what's the date? The May?
Yeah, it's May.
Yeah, you want to have it by May 14th.
It'd be the 20
Okay.
of 24.
2024.
Yeah, 24.
So it gives it, that gives you a year to raise the money and then go through the process.
I think we were also talking about maybe stones or
Landscaping.
landscaper that would kind of tell what you did, what you was, she and Dad started the square dance 64 years ago. She was on the town board for 13 years. She's running the Redstone Museum and different items like that. So maybe, you know, I guess we're still kind of talking about that.
Well, you know, I mean, what a great partnership because it would beautify the courtyard. You know, so I think it's great for you all to work with staff. Not bad.
Oh, one more, the Lions report. You did that for like 6 years.
Oh, she did.
That's right.
You gotta do some sort of stone scroll with all of her
Yeah.
many
We were talking
accomplishments.
about bas relief little vignettes that could be posted in the original niche, you know, that surround her. And the bas relief is kind of like, if you think of a coin, it's that raised profile.
One last thing. So I can't speak for Laverne, but every time I'm sitting here for the 5 hours, twice a month, I have this sticker on my iPad that reminds me, what would Laverne do? And I really feel like Laverne would love this idea.
She absolutely would love this idea. Are you kidding? She has a statue of herself at town hall.
I agree, we keep the chair. That keeps us, that keeps us up. Yeah.
And actually, I would like to have a small statue to eventually put on the chair. If that's okay. If you could work on it.
I just want to interject that, again, about not knowing, not being exactly sure that this is the place for her. And I understand we need your approval anyway, wherever she goes. But we also had talked about, up by the historical museum and by the school, which I also think would be a really lovely place for her to reside. Trying to think of other places that we had talked about.
That was the depot, you know, out in front, you know, lots of different.
Yeah.
places. The problem with the school, we understand that it took an act of law to get the bench put in there from the St. Vrain School District. There was a commemorative bench for the Vietnam,
Yeah,
and that was Herculean, I guess. to
that's
get that
not
there.
our purview because
Right.
it's same school district property.
But we would,
Shared.
right, so if it was up closer to the building.
And what would Laverne do?
Yeah, you know.
Mhm. Laverne would put the statue on wheels.
Say that. She would travel 1 month here, 1 month there. Uh-huh. How heavy is this statue going to be exactly?
Oh, my guess is probably about 175 pounds, 200 max, but that would be, she'll be hollow, yeah, and she'll be bolted. And there's like stainless steel armature on the inside, that's the way all bronzes are made. And they're very weather resistant, it just requires waxing once a year on a hot summer day. And if someone does get past the security cameras and puts paint on her or something like that, there's all kinds of professional people in Loveland who know exactly how to take care of that and won't be a problem.
Well, I think this is just delightful.
Mhm.
It's a delightful subject. So thank you for coming to talk to us. And I think what we would want is your recommendation about where she should go, you know, and work with staff so that it's feasible, right? And then we'll make the decision. Is there anything that you need from us besides personal donations?
Funding, is there a little pocket of funding somewhere to help facilitate this, those kind of things? What would the ideal unveiling be? So the timeline.
And, what else? Are you okay with what, lead follower, get out of the way?
I love that one.
Okay. Jerry, did you want to add anything?
Well,
Of course.
as far as where we're trying to put it. I'm also thinking like, just as you're, maybe like, not right up front of the park, but that road just before the St. Ray or the quarry, I mean, the shelter. Where it goes off the-
Oh, yeah.
That's right there, but then there might be some stuff there in the way too, so welcome to Laverne Johnson Park.
Well, you know, our budget process starts late summer, early fall. So that's when we'll talk about funding. I know we talked about it last budget cycle and when we talked about the LAHC funding and decided to wait until 2024 to talk about it again. So, so that'll definitely be on the radar to discuss.
I will personally take up a collection here amongst the Board of Trustees. Everybody's giving, everybody. Done.
Thank you for your
And we
time.
won't put it on the pictures now.
Victoria, did you want to add something?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Right. Feel free to leave her for a while.
Well, I'd be happy to, but I'm kind of protective. She's soft play. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I'll be glad to send pictures if you guys, more pictures if you guys need a fundraising purpose.
We're good.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. That's a good night.
Yeah, really. What a pleasure to be able to talk about something like that. Okay, moving on to general business, we have resolution 2023-23, which is the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code. And I know Chief Fishke was here before. Did he have to take off or?
Not sure, but right.
Got it. Okay, so do you feel equipped to?
At least give the basics, and
Okay.
then if you wanted Attorney Dittman to go over why we're doing the resolution aspect, or if you're all comfortable with that. So the resolution was to adopt the 2021 International Fire Code as adopted by the Lions Fire Protection District. So for the International Fire Code, it is state statute that we do this by a resolution after the Fire Protection District of our area and adopts their version. And then the town can determine if they'd like to make any exceptions or changes to what the fire department adopts. On this, the big change that would come with adopting the 2021 IFC as adopted by the fire department is that it would require single family and duplex residential structures to have a fire suppression system unless they are specifically exempted by the Board of Trustees. When the 2018 fire code was adopted, the board at that time desired to exempt the single family and duplex structures from the requirement of a fire suppression system. So the town of Lyons, the board could still request that type of exemption if they wanted to continue that. During the last discussion, it sounded like we should bring it forward as the fire department recommended, and then it could be discussed if there was some changes that were requested.
Attorney Dittman, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Aaron had mentioned earlier about why are we doing this as a resolution? That's because state law says we adopt, via resolution for a fire code specifically. So as we mentioned earlier, the reference in the ordinance is just simply to point people at what fire code we're adopting, but this is the actual adoption done through resolution.
So I have a couple of questions, but I'm gonna hold them and see if anybody else has questions.
I have a question. I'm not sure if anybody can answer. I don't know what the average cost is for new single-family homes per square foot. I see that it would be an additional cost of $2.35 to $2.50 a square foot. But it's hard for me to relate that when I don't know the actual or the estimated cost of construction per square foot of a residential home. Does anybody know?
Well, if you,
Is that the price per square foot of the house?
so
you just
like the average house in Lyons is 3,000 square feet probably. You would multiply that by the 250.
But what's the total square foot cost to build, I think is what trustee Datsy's asking.
So
Just like to compare relatively.
Yeah, I'd say 300.
300 to 400 a square foot. Okay.
So according to Zillow, the median square footage, price per square foot in Lyons right now is $325,
Yeah,
Okay.
25, so it's going up.
leading
Okay.
to a median average home price of about $965,000.
Yeah, so this is basically less than 1%.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so when these were exempted in 2018, single family and duplex, do you remember the reasoning for that? In 2018?
I was here, I think, as a UEB liaison at the time, and I remember discussion. I think in particular, there was talk for the Summit Housing coming along and being concerned if they could afford it. That was the main item I remember, at maybe affordable housing in general, but there was the discussion on that.
Yeah,
I think there was also, go ahead.
go ahead. I just cost. I remember people speaking just cost generally. That, you know, at the time, the sprinkler requirement was pretty new. And that the cost of adding this on a new homes was a lot. There was some discussion about water too, about, you know, whether it would increase the town's water needs, but mostly cost.
Only if there's a fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, as Chief Pischke talked about, is actually you save water in the event of a fire.
Right. And again, can somebody remind me how many empty lots we have available for new residential builds right now? Is it 6?
I was listing at 9.
9?
You know, but you think about, there's the redevelopment on Evans and the potential on 224 Seward.
And as we talked at our last conversation, this is probably a bigger issue if, as we move forward with our IGA, any of the properties requesting annexation would build, because those are the most prone in the wildland urban interface. And as you'll find out, there's, you know, probably 6 or 7 of those different large properties. So this would apply to them. I think, to me, that's the most important. The handful that we have here in town are all market rates. And I'm more concerned that homes up in the hills would have sprinklers.
So people could come to the board and ask to be exempt from this requirement. Did I understand that right?
No, right, no, I don't. See
Okay.
that. We had found before that there wasn't, we had looked at some exemptions to building code, and that it wasn't something that came before the board to request an exemption from building code.
Okay.
I think the only other way to do that would be as if the board would want to say this would be applicable on a date certain. I mean, if this was going to keep someone from building, you know, or making them want to build sooner, I can't imagine, but if it did, you could apply it that way.
Go ahead.
No, I'm ready. I don't have questions, but I have thoughts that I'll share, but I don't.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is this residential only or commercial as well?
Commercial already requires it, so commercial was in there for sprinkler systems are required in all construction. Previously, the board had exempted just a single residential duplex. They were already required for any commercial, and all commercial already does require it with the current code.
Okay, great.
Multifamily.
And yeah.
And multifamily is already.
Okay. All right, I would entertain a motion. Trustee Dottie.
I motion to approve resolution 2021-23, a resolution of the town of Lyons making the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code effective within the borders of the town of Lyons with certain exceptions. Hold on. Were we voting on with certain exceptions?
It
Yeah,
ran out
well-
of space in the agenda part.
Officially, yeah, because the top, I believe you could tell me if I'm wrong, Attorney Gibbon, the fire department has listed their exceptions. So what you
Correct.
see in here, is fire department's exceptions to the code as they have listed them.
Yep.
The same as we had the ordinance with our exceptions. So they have their own exceptions, that whole 57 pages worth of exceptions that the fire department has placed on the IFC.
We're not adopting any additional exceptions, but we are adopting, as the fire department has, many exceptions that they have decided were necessary. But those exceptions don't include the sprinkler requirement exception, which is the only one we added last time.
That's okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a motion?
I believe so. I am motioning with certain exceptions based on what the Lyons Fire Protection District already ascertained.
Yeah.
And asking us.
Okay, and then Mayor Pro Tem has a question. Can she ask a question before there's a second?
Sure, you want to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I kind of got myself confused, but I kind of think that I want to say this now, and then if we need to do the second, then I can do it in discussion again. But I'm feeling very hesitant that we do this before we actually adopt a 21 international code that includes the fire code. So I feel like in a way, this is a cart before the horse when we are asking for information about how does this impact ADUs? How does this impact tiny houses? And what potential affordable housing exemptions there could be. So I feel like personally, we're putting the cart before the horse right now. And I was going to suggest that we move this and adopt at second reading of 11:45.
Okay, so that wasn't a question.
Right, so when do I do this?
That's the question.
After there's a second and discussion.
I do
So
it then.
would you like to second the motion
No, because I don't really want this.
so
to
that we
happen.
can have a discussion?
Well, somebody else can.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Okay. So I think what you're saying is there's a timing issue
For me.
with
So-
this. Go ahead, Attorney Gittman.
Yeah, if I can respond, and hopefully kind of address your concern. So in the ordinance, we're not actually adopting the International Fire Code. We're just basically referencing it that we've already adopted it via resolution, as promulgated by the Lyons Fire Protection District. But the International Fire Codes themselves and the International Building Codes themselves, the IBC suite, doesn't include the fire code. It's a separate, it's done via resolution versus ordinance. It's done separately. So, really that part of the ordinance is something we added. So there's a reference that people can go look for about which version of the fire code we're on. We've had issues in the past where people can say, we looked at your code and we can't figure out what fire code you're on. And so to just kind of add some user friendliness to our code references, we just added that in, but it's not actually adopting it.
Because we don't adopt it, the fire department.
Right,
adopts it.
they've
And
already
they have
adopted it.
adopted it.
April 13th.
Right, but I still feel like we do not have questions answered. And if we want to, we have the opportunity to make amendments or exceptions.
Right, which I agree is why I wanted to put it on general business, so there could be discussion and that you would understand that tonight was accepting this version unless you want it to be changed. Then
Right.
you may want something to be changed. I did have some concerns about the cart before the horse idea that we don't want to reference it. We don't want to adopt a reference to the 2021 code if we haven't adopted the resolution. So I didn't know which way.
So
So I'm personally, right now, I'm not ready to adopt this tonight, and I'm gonna vote no if we're gonna not move it forward at the same time that we do the other.
Well, I think it's just, what it is it's two different things. So the
Sure.
fire department has already adopted this. We're just ratifying it. Right, Brandon, the board doesn't adopt the fire code.
Yeah,
We
so,
adopt the
well, I mean, in order to make it effective within the boundaries of the town, we do adopt it via resolution, but
resolution.
for the most part, it's just, we're just ratifying and making any additional changes we want. They do the bulk.
Well, my understanding is Mayor Pro Tem Farrell might have concerns about having a sprinkler in the single or the duplex. And so if one of the trustees or somebody wanted to make a town amendment to it, you would have to do it now or request it be come back later with a new amendment, would
Right.
you?
Would you like to,
When do you make exceptions?
You would do it now or whenever the
You would do it.
resolution is, finally.
So-
But I don't have enough information to do it now.
so would you like to think about making a motion to continue this to a date certain?
That's exactly what I was hoping. Is now the time to do that?
So because there's already a motion on the floor to pass, I think we'd have to vote on passage and have to fail. Unless the first and the second like withdraw their motion, and instead we vote to continue to a date certain, but it's not, continuing is not an amendment to the motion that's on the table, so.
Got it. Okay, so then the process would be, the question is, do we want to continue this to a date certain? And if every individual's answer is yes, we want to do that, then we would vote no on this motion that's on the table now.
Or they can just withdraw.
Or you can just
Or-
withdraw, yeah.
Oh, okay. Or, who seconded? I can't remember.
I second.
Would you like to withdraw
I
your
will
second?
withdraw My second.
Would you like to withdraw your motion?
I withdraw the motion.
Okay,
It's not-
would you, thank you.
I would like to make a motion to move this to coincide with the second reading of ordinance 1145, where we can discuss some of the things that we asked for you to come back with more information for.
And so just for the record, to be clear, we have to do this to a date certain, that would be May 1st.
May 1st.
May 1st. So in the future, for clarification, I should have made that request before we had a motion to approve. Is that right?
You should have started with that motion.
We started with that. Okay. My apologies for making this
No, my
confusing.
apologies. I think I have my foot on that too. Attorney Dittman?
Yeah, I'll wait for a second and then I have a comment to make just for informational purposes, but.
Okay,
I'll second. You can do it.
okay, I'll second.
Okay, so my comment is just so the board is aware, when this comes up on the next agenda, the ordinance for the IBC code suite will be first as a second reading public hearing, right? In that, as it's currently drafted, it says, that code reference back to the International Fire Code, as I mentioned earlier, that references a resolution saying we pass it via resolution, XXX or whatever. If this, for whatever reason, this resolution fails to pass and we're on the last version of the fire code, it's going to create a problem in that ordinance. And so just FYI, it's just, we may have to think about this a little bit, or go back and amend that ordinance if the fire code ends up being, changed in some substantial way. We decide not to adopt a fire code.
But that's kind of what I was saying, why I brought it up now, so
Yeah,
you guys would have a chance to do your research before the resolution came and have information to discuss for changes to the resolution, if they were desired. I will see what I can find out again on if there may not be many. I just did a search and I couldn't find much on any exemptions, so there may not be much to go on except your own personal understanding.
Well, and to be honest, I would really appreciate the, professional opinion of
Fire marshal.
chief. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the motion.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for working with me.
Thank you for hanging in there. Okay, lease update.
At your last board meeting, you had requested that Leaf bring forward by April 15th, whether or not they were interested in working with the town to lease the previous Public Works building east of Town Hall. So I wanted to make you aware that on April 12th, I did receive an email from the Executive Director, Lori Barton, that said, "Dear Victoria, I'm writing with an update from Leaf. We value our partnership with the town and opportunity to lease the shed building, and we are grateful for all the efforts you have put forth on our behalf. However, I wanted to let you know that Leaf has decided to pursue a different opportunity. We are not able to share more information just yet, but expect to be able to do so in the near future. My best." So that is the update. At this point, they are not needing to utilize or wanting to move forward with that. I did write back and let her know that I was not going to plan to do anything immediate, other than maybe house some mowers. And so if their plans fall through, to please reach out to us. And that's the update from Lee.
Any questions about that?
I don't have a question. Well, maybe I'll wait. Go ahead if somebody else does.
Well, I just have a question about the archives. So the archives are just staying put for now then?
They are there for now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good opportunity now, if they truly don't even build it, to revisit how we use all of it. Seeing how it's a nice, clean, empty building.
Yes. Yes, and knowing what it was going to cost to have it updated, we may have another use for someone else or for us. Or we may want to look even broader at bigger picture uses for the site,
And we didn't purchase any trailers, correct?
We did not.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I'm a big fan of Leaf, and, in full disclosure, my husband is on the board of directors. And I'm bummed, but I genuinely hope that they are able to find a place that works for them as their biggest and brightest expectations to the best of their expectations. They're an asset to our community. And so I think that we would have made a nice campus together, but at the same time, we do want what's best for them. And I like and appreciate that you are willing to consider just holding the space for a little longer. In case for some reason their plans don't totally work out, that I think that's a really nice offer. So thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that as well. Thank you for speaking up, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm really happy with how the town staff and our representatives on the board of trustees worked every angle of this to bring Leaf to a centralized location in what we could consider a civic campus. I think as prior chair of the Leaf board, I know there have been many discussions and concerns around creating a centralized location where every resident can access with or without transportation. They can access by foot. So having that centralized location was key. And I am so grateful for all the efforts put forth by the town, the staff, the board of trustees, in trying to move archives and move lawnmowers so that we could better serve our community. Because Leaf does serve our community well. And I really hope that they're able to find a centralized location to make sure that everybody can access these services. It's really important.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that staff literally moved mountains.
Yes, yes,
To make this happen.
yes.
And it won't be for naught, because we will figure out what the highest and best use of that piece of property is. And we wish Leaf all the best. Okay, anything else about Leaf? Seeing it. So let's talk about railroad options. So this is discussion direction to staff. Do you want to, so for those who might be listening who don't know, we did have a workshop on this earlier. And we had a presentation of options. Do we want to I don't know if we want to go through those again, or if we want to just bring them up and reference what we want to do, but you're looking for the direction of, okay, what exactly are we doing about it?
Right.
Okay,
You want us to pull up the options again?
Sure.
Yeah.
So essentially, we went back and revisited two options that were presented earlier and then added another option. So a quick overview, this option 2, which was selected initially. We did adjust this from a 6-foot wide pedestrian lane to 8-foot wide. You still have your chicanes and you have some buffers, and the chicanes are just for traffic calming. And you would have a shared road for bicycle traffic going to the west, and then bicycle traffic going east would share the 8-foot wide trail with pedestrians. And the road width generally stays the same for vehicle traffic. And then the next option is option 3, where it's essentially the same width of head lane as an 8-foot wide consistently through. We straightened out the vehicle lane. And you have varying widths for vehicles passing through here, but your head lane is going to stay the same. And again, your bicycle traffic would share the road going west, and then coming east, they would share with the head traffic. And then lastly, we added this option 5, where you have your ped lane varies from 10 feet wide to 8 feet. And then your vehicle lane goes from about 10 feet to 11.5. So your vehicle lanes varying as well. And again, you have a buffer in here, and there'll be some sort of delineator, soft delineator in the buffer zone as well.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, who would like to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start. So I like option 5. My only concern with option 5, with cars being on the left lane, is ice in the winter. That side never sees the sun, but that's it. But it seems fine. But I mean, to me, any option works. This seems to work for the neighborhood and for what we're trying to achieve. So.
Thank you. Trustee Dottie?
I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion before I make my own.
And then we have to provide our reasoning too. Go ahead, trustee.
Okay, yeah, certainly option 5, if we were to rethink this from scratch, I would go completely pedestrian and bike only and golf carts. I would take off all traffic. I'm not buying the argument from the neighborhood. Everybody's got too much traffic in front of their house. You should see my house. But option 5 is probably the best thing. But if we ever go back to a vote, I'll vote completely pedestrian.
I agree with that too.
Okay. Here for Jen?
I'm a fan of option 5, and I really appreciate, that, Planner Kimmett had a light bulb go off to give us one more presentation. I do think, though, that this should be our done and final. I do think that, like you were saying, Trustee Elson, that this does address as best as we can, the neighbors, in the surrounding neighborhoods concerns. That's not, I don't think anything would be ideal for them, but, and I appreciate that, but I do think that this is as close as we can get. One thought that I had is, my preference is that we do the smallest, lower to the ground, flexible. What are they called again?
Bollards.
Bollards, thank you. I don't love things that are up high, but maybe if you had to do something, there's one on one at each end. But in the middle, I prefer the smaller to the ground.
I was thinking the big target balls.
Trustee Bowman?
I say option 5 as well. I like the more pedestrian and bicycle space possible, and the thinner it is for the cars, probably the slower they'll go.
Road diet, right?
Okay, I hear a consensus. Well, and I like what you had to say about appeasing residents on Evans. We've consulted several times. And I feel like they are the ones most concerned with what this looks like. And I feel like if we can have some sort of win-win, this is our best case scenario. So I'm going to go with the consensus, which is option 5.
Yeah, and I will too, for all the reasons everybody already stated, so go forth and railroad.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you everyone for your patience with that. Okay, so next up, we have discussion direction on the St. Vrain Trail project. So we had a workshop on this earlier as well. And we were presented with some options. I want to hear what everybody else has to say. You know, nothing about this is perfect. And I want to do what we can to move this project forward. So is there anyone who feels strongly about any of the options that were presented to us? Or has opinions about how to move forward?
The only thing I feel pretty strongly about where this is concerned is how much Highland Ditch might charge us in working with them. I have seen bills, I have seen prior bills that have really surprised us. And I just don't know how friendly they will be working with us moving forward. And so as much as I want to remain business friendly, and I heard option A was the preferred option, I'm very concerned about how much Highland Ditch is going to charge us for any time spent on this at all.
Well, and in perpetuity.
Right,
So we'd be subjecting future boards
right.
to,
My other concern is the shortfall. Again, I hear Mayor Pro Tem saying, well, we can't afford that. I mean, we're out 600 to 800,000. So unless I were to hear that we had found funding somehow, somewhere, I would be very cautious as well.
and I would say the possibility exists that we will find funding.
Like 90%, 80, 75.
I think you have to, sorry, I think you have to remember too, that cost, if we go to the Highland Ditch side, doesn't add in all the extra fees that we have to pay to Highland Ditch. So it might be
For the next
800,000
however
now,
many
yeah,
hundred
might
years.
double to 1.5 million just to get it built.
I would agree with that. Even though we do find funding, doesn't mean somebody's not paying taxes for it.
That's
I
right.
mean, all the funding comes from somewhere. It comes from our federal taxes, it comes from somebody's taxes. And somehow Highland Ditch is getting away with it. So I don't like the Highland Ditch thing at all. But I do agree with the very strong words I heard before. This is a really important thing for safety. That there is, because that is a mess of a highway or a road out there. My opinion is, we do everything legally we can to, take that, to go to Clark's and get the, shed back. I don't think it's eminent domain. They don't own that. It's a crappy lease. I think we should look at all of our legal opportunities to get out of that lease.
I would love to hear what Attorney Dittman has to say about it.
Yeah, let's hear from the rest of the
Yeah,
board
let's
first.
go.
I do too, actually. You know, I could not help but thinking of that presentation workshop. If Highland Ditch, I would say yes to their requests. Every single one of them to me seemed well within a working possibility to do. But because they will be unreasonably charging us throughout that process, it's a non-starter. It just is. And it's really disappointing because it could serve everyone so much more easily without conflict. So I think that's important to be said, that Highland Ditch, I would happy to accommodate what your wishes are, but we cannot be charged anymore for those conversations. Moving on to that, I think that we have to, our responsibility is to look at the 30,000 foot view and our comprehensive plan. Our community has told us specifically that they want this trail to connect to the eastern corridor multiple ways. I think safety is key. I did go recently to an event at Spirit Hounds, and my husband and I walked there. And we both commented about how nice it would be to have our bikes in the back. And so I just can't not keep going back to that option, and anything else that we could do with finding a partnership with Spirit Hounds and Clarks. I've anything, you know, and I think that there's some chances there still. And I would be willing to discuss that in the executive session further this evening if we had to. We're getting pretty close to the end of the night. It's not too late yet. So I would really like to see that work. I know it's not going to make everybody happy, and that is a disappointment because I love making everyone happy, but I don't think we can in this particular situation. We need to move forward, and we need to honor our comprehensive plan.
Are there any legal options? I know we got an email from a former trustee at one point, and what, is there eminent domain or anything that could be?
Well, I think, so Brandon, and so maybe Brandon can address this, and maybe it's something that we need to discuss in executive session, which would
Yes.
mean that we would discuss it on May 1st.
So I'm going to speak this in kind of general terms, but yes, as I explained in the workshop, you know, eminent domain, condemnation, they're one and the same. That's always an option, right, to acquire property or to extinguish property rights that may exist. And so if you do eminent domain, it doesn't necessarily mean you take the entire property, right? You can take any piece of that property or any type of property rights interest. So for example, you know, if there's a lease we want to extinguish, we can get rid of the lease via eminent domain without taking, you know, underlying property. And so, you know, I think it's trying to say general as possible. That's the way to think about it. You know, condemnation doesn't necessarily mean you take someone's property away, then bulldoze their buildings. It can mean that you extinguish portions of that property or certain types of property rights which may exist. And that's an option. That's an option against Highland. That's an option against Clark's, an option against Spirit Hounds, you know, whatever the board's direction is. It's not without added cost. It's definitely a process. It's a district court case is what it is, but so would trying to invalidate Clark's lease. And, you know, we know 100% we're allowed to condemn the property. We don't know 100% whether we'd be successful in saying a lease, which we drafted, you know, 20 years ago, granted, is invalid. You know, that's probably a much more of an uphill fight to have.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think it's important to remember that the properties in question, the land belongs to the town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so I'm in agreement that I think, working with Highland is the least attractive option here. I would actually like to ask if staff and if the board thinks it's worth having a sit down with Neil Sullivan and with Lonnie and getting everybody together and see if there's any possibility of any kind of negotiation. And I would also like to schedule that executive session.
Do we have the ability to call it executive session that's not on an agenda?
You could. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that, you know, we'll be 100% prepared to answer all your questions, but you could technically have an executive session anytime if the need arose. It's not preferred, put it that way.
I understand
Yeah.
it's not preferred, but I would be willing to do it this evening if anybody else wanted to.
I'd rather have Brandon be prepared.
Okay.
I would be willing to have a short conversation about it tonight. I don't know if I have specific questions for Brandon.
Or maybe we could then give Brandon more direction to be more prepared. Just a possibility.
I don't think we need an executive. I mean, I'm not opposed to an executive session, but I don't think we need an executive session to do that.
I guess if there's general direction, you'd like to give me to bring to the next meeting, I can certainly take that back about what sorts of questions you might have generally without specific to any particular person or situation.
I guess the reason I was proposing it is there's also some things that I can imagine that discussing with staff to do perhaps in the meantime might be valuable. But I can wait too.
I mean, if you would like to make a motion to go into executive session, we can do that.
Do you see value in this evening doing an executive session from a timing standpoint? Or you do?
You do.
From a time.
Then I would make a motion to move into, to have executive session at the end of our current agenda.
Well, how
So
about,
after,
how about we have that vote then, at that time? Let's not do it now.
Okay,
so after the summary of
Of
action
actions.
items, then you would make a motion to
I'll
go
make a
to
motion.
executive session. Okay. All right, and that's not too far away.
no.
Okay, trustee reports. Yes, you do. Trustee Elson.
EAB is meeting tomorrow, so I have them. SFC met last Thursday. The Resource Advisory Board Conservation Representative. You can name them, just really Captain, she was there.
Exactly.
She's gonna be helping be the link between the SFC and the Boulder County. For that, for things like composting things.
Mhm.
So things coming to that. We talked about CC4CA. I attended the CC4CA meeting virtually last Friday. And to be honest, it seemed more like a sales pitch. It was more of just explaining all the different programs they have for different types of loans. And different ways to get funding is what I got from it for the hour that was there. I mean, it was good information, but it wasn't like specifics. It was more of ways that they can offer services.
Did staff attend that too?
Yeah, Kim was there.
I'd be curious to hear what she thought too.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yep. I mean, it wasn't a waste of time. It was mainly like, they went through all their hierarchy, explained like green banking, greenhouse gas reduction fund. It was mainly all about the different programs that they have. The ways for access to it.
Mhm.
Same thing, we discussed the limb drop off, because they're coordinating that this Saturday, 8 to 12. Be like some trustees will be there to have
Yep.
trustee meet and greet. I'll be there for a little while.
Great.
Doing the Bear Crew trash can, same thing. There's river cleanup the 23rd. There's also one, I think on the 22nd.
For Earth Day.
For Earth Day, yes. Sorry, the 21st. There's one on the 21st from 3 to 5 for Earth Day, and there's also one on the 23rd. That's gonna be around the Labyrinth to Laverne Johnson and Black Bear. They reviewed the comp, so everyone had homework to review the comp plan. They came back with things that they want to work on. Discussing that, continuing to see what fits best with their interests. Kathleen came from Lions Climate Action, just like she did for the EAB, and discussed what she's working on. With the spring. And, oh, they had a suggestion. That's something that they're gonna do, and Keen brought it up for them, he's not there. We'll plug them. They're gonna have a good news section. Every meeting, they're gonna have something about good news, so
Great.
it'd be something for us to do, good news section. For the
Yeah.
Board of Trustees.
Great.
I think that's enough.
Thank you, trustee.
That's all
Elson.
there was. I can't remember.
If it comes to you,
Yeah, I think
just
of it.
type up. Trustee Duffy?
Yes, so the EVC has not met since our last BOT meeting. We'll be meeting on Wednesday, April 19th in 2 days. The Housing and Human Services Commission met on April 10th. I want to thank Claudia Keene for stepping up. We have been having trouble the last few meetings finding a quorum. So it's really vital that if they're going to make important decisions, if they're going to vote on anything, it's really important to have a quorum. So thank you to Claudia Keene for stepping up. The good news I have to share is that we were introduced to the Boulder County Area Agency on Aging Mountain Resource Specialist virtually. Her name is Amy Schnapper, I want to say. And so they are at the Walt Self Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And they encourage seniors to make an appointment to see them. And the other good news, I was really surprised to hear this, there's going to be a resource fair at the library on May 31st.
Great.
So I literally just mentioned it to the agency, like the meeting before, and then voila, this meeting, she was like, oh, by the way, we're gonna have a resource fair. I'm like, really? Fantastic. More good news about Lions Valley Townhomes. So it sounds like we have about 87 people signed up to receive information about the application window. About 25 of those 87 people actually need a 1-bedroom unit. So I wanted to mention how Town Administrator Simonson was at the meeting and mentioned that Paul Capps is willing to look into 4 or 9% tax credit if we can find land. So I think we need to look at, I know we're having a roundtable housing meeting on Wednesday. Maybe we can talk about land banking, Proposition 123. I don't know, somehow we have got to find land for 25 1-bedrooms or 1-bedrooms. We just need to focus on 1-bedrooms because, as you know, Lions Valley Townhomes is mostly 2 and 3 bedrooms. Update on construction. This is also really good news. So there will be 4 single-family homes ready in June. There will be 8 single-family homes ready in July. There will be 8 single-family homes and 8 multifamily ready in August. And then in September will be the final 4 single-family homes and the 8 multifamily. So over 4 months, they will be phased in.
And has there been a date set for a ribbon cutting?
No, we're still hoping to set a date for the application window. So the Housing and Human Services Commission is actually calling an emergency meeting tomorrow afternoon with Highland Property Management so that we can review the process, the prioritization process and the application window, the timeline. So it's imminent, probably next week. So that's why we're having a special meeting tomorrow. Okay. So we can clarify all this. What I do want to clarify here is the definition around priority or prioritization levels. So priority, meaning category 1, will be given to anyone who is living in the town limits of Lyons on September 11th, 2013. So prior to that,
Impacted by the.
and basically anybody who was living in Lyons
Was impacted.
was impacted by the flood.
The state and Summit both define that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Great.
and category 2 will be anybody who is living in the greater Lyons area, meaning they had an 80540 zip code.
Okay.
During the flood. So I just want to clarify that because that changed. Leaf gave us a mental health update. We're lucky we have a commissioner, Sherry Moreau, who's also the mental health specialist. So beginning May 8th, for a 6 to 8 week period, we will have a smart recovery group for adults on Monday evenings for about 90 minutes. That will be James Hart facilitating. And there will also be an art-based group for 14 to 18-year-olds by local art therapist Jennifer Jarrett. And those will be 2 hours long. So, you know, we've been talking about this for a while now, and here we are, May 8th, it begins. So we're going to make sure we communicate that and advertise that, right? And then I also wanted to say that this Thursday, if anybody would like to join us at 1 p.m., Town Administrator Simonson has agreed to give her 2013 flood presentation that she typically gives to government agencies such as FEMA. And the reason she's giving that presentation is because I'm going to be heading a subcommittee, a volunteer committee around the 10th anniversary of the 2015 flood. So I just wanted to make sure anybody wanted to join us for that committee meeting. That'll be our first meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Gaffney? Trustee A.
Okay, so the UEB did meet on April 5th. Actually, it was a very interesting meeting. They are spending a lot of time still discussing the solar farm and the battery storage project. It's very fluid. There's an enormous amount of considerations. especially in regards to the green energy, but then also in regards to how electrical vehicles are changing the dynamics, et cetera. They do know, and I iterate this, that the board is not in a position to take on a lot of risk at this point. And so they understand that. They we talked about in the past, they understood the decision that we made previously, but they will be coming back and talking to us about it in the future. As far as new business, there was a really fascinating presentation by, I always get her last name right, you know, Diana.
Yes.
So there's an organization called NEVA that strategizes throughout the United States where electrical charging stations should go for vehicles. And they somehow have targeted Lions for some reason, or because it's on the way to Rocky Mountain National Park or something. It's completely in the infancy, but what they do is they put in these really, really high voltage or high transmission charging stations so you can charge really, really quickly. However, there's a lot of problems with that the town would have to be aware of if this ever came about. And that's largely because she had a very long presentation about how people charge vehicles. People tend to charge them when they go to these places between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, when electrical rates are the most expensive. It can completely disrupt how a town actually bills its electricity and could rise electric rates a lot. So it was all about be very, very careful about growth on electric vehicle charging, that you have to think about how you contract your electricity. I wish Aaron was here.
Oh.
Do you know any more about it, about this presentation?
No, the only thing I did see an email regarding, high,
Yeah.
fast powered,
Whatever it's called, yeah,
charges.
yeah.
but no, I'm not familiar with the NEVA issue.
Okay, well, so if you just have a minute, so apparently,
I'll ask you tomorrow.
you know, we have a standard rate that we pay mean.
Oh,
right?
yeah, and there's
And it's-
demand charges that are higher during when people are using one.
Well, I thought Aaron was saying that mean basically looks at your last 3 years of behavior. And it looks at how much the town draws at different parts of the day, right? And
We
it
don't have a
says,
separate demand charge. Most
Yeah.
places do.
yeah, but we do not.
We do not.
And that's the problem,
Yes.
because they look at our behavior.
Yeah.
And so I never thought about it. It's like, you know, electricity is a lot cheaper in the middle of the night than it is during the day, right? So if you're at home mining Bitcoin, do it at midnight, because they look at our average. And if you want to be a good citizen, use electricity at the middle of the night, and you'll lower our electric rates. Well, that's just it. If we continue with doing this average thing, and these cars charge during the day, basically everybody's subsidizing these cars. That was the long and short of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So there's a lot to talk about it. I don't know where it is. Okay, also, they're completely in support of the 2021 building codes. I think they even did they motioned to do a vote and then just pass it on to me. So that's all I've got. Oh, the student advisory, they're all ready to go to college.
They're going to prom.
They're going to prom, they're going to college.
Yeah.
They skipped their meeting last night.
Mm.
So either we gotta get more stuff on their agenda, or they're gone, they're out of town, they're leaving. They're short timers. So, all right, that's it.
Thank you. Number 10.
The PCDC did not meet this last week, so I don't have a huge report. I think that Administrator Simonson's summary of the short-term rental presentation that we got from DOLA hit the nail on the head for the most part. And the only other really big thing that they've been discussing is annexation training that they would like to do in conjunction or back to back between PCDC and the Board of Trustees. They are also asking me, and I'm wondering, I'm going to put Trustee Elson on the hot seat about our goals that we talked about in that meeting and having our lovely spreadsheet, because they're like, what's feedback?
Thought about it, so I put a note in my calendar.
Thank you. And I planned initially to be at the meet and greet for the entire time. I am not positive. I'm a glutton for punishment and volunteered to do the after prom setup. And I think we have like 100 and something plus balloons and stuff. Anyway, so I might not make it the whole time, plus then my daughter and it's her first prom and there's a lot going on. So I'm gonna try to be there, but I can't guarantee it. And that's good news is proms this weekend, so there you go.
Trustee Delman?
So from the PRC, they talked about repairing or replacing the dog park fence. So they have put that out to bid. And then the other thing that I have down here is what Trustee Elson said. It's about, they're gonna have the river trash cleanup on this Sunday, April 23rd from 9 to 11 a.m.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, Chair Drystad and I went down to the Capitol week ago Thursday to testify about Senate Bill 213, and we're there for 8.5 hours. They did not call us to testify and they had quit at that point. There were 250 people waiting to testify and they had quit calling elected people to testify. So I figured I got lost in the shuffle. And of course, as soon as we walked out of the building and got in the car, I got a text saying, Mayor Rogan, they called your name.
Oh, no.
So, and I had let the sergeant at arms know that we were leaving and there was really nothing to add to the testimony that had been heard. I mean, it was overwhelmingly in opposition to this bill, which will be voted on either tomorrow or Wednesday. So it gets voted out of committee and then onto the Senate and then onto the House and then back to the Senate. So, as you may have heard, the mayor of Denver and the mayor of Aurora both made statements in opposition to this bill, mostly because of the preemption of local zoning. And so that means that I think 27 of 28 metro mayors are opposed. And the one mayor who is in favor is only in favor with amendments, and that would be Mayor Brockett from Boulder. So, so Chair Drystad was a total trooper and didn't even complain about my driving. And it was great to have him there, and it was great to be able to talk with Representative Amabile and Senator Marchman and, you know, the other folks waiting in the wings. So, and then Metro Mayor's Caucus met on Wednesday last week. We talked about SB 213, of course, but we also talked about Prop 123, and they had representatives from DOLA, CHAFA, and OEDIT there to talk about how to access these funds. And they're really still figuring it out. So they're really building the plane while it's flying, or whatever metaphor you want to use. Which is another argument against 213, because like, let's see how this works out first. So, so that was exciting. And it was also my birthday morning. So I got birthday bagel from the Metro Mayors. And then April 24th through the 27th is the City Summit of the Americas in Denver. There's really cool free arts stuff happening in Denver that full week from people from all over the Americas. So I encourage everybody to think about taking a trip down there. I'll be there Wednesday evening, Thursday and Friday. And then question, are we having the third graders at town hall this year?
Mr. Stahl reached out late last week and said, yes, they are interested. And so we're trying to find some dates.
Okay.
But we also need to change that up a bit since we don't have Public Works next door. And the sheriff is no longer, you know,
Right.
they have to cross the street. So we're gonna have to switch it up.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to. Plan that.
Okay. That's super. That's the most fun day of the year in town hall, I think, is when all the third graders come. It's super cute. Okay. And so let's do a legal update and then take a quick break. And then you have a motion. Okay, legal update.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rogan. So I'm going to be quick because I know we're going to try to get in executive session here, but I do want to let you know about another piece of legislation that we've been working on. is HB 231282. On its face, it provides a pretty simple change, which is to add public utility to the definition of covered entities under the Colorado Consumer Protection Act. What that means, though, in actuality, is that would add municipal utilities, electric, water, and sanitation to the covered entities under the Consumer Protection Act, which basically says that those entities are covered or prohibited from engaging in unfair business practices, which is a pretty extensive list and pretty broadly written. And what it allows is for private individuals to sue covered entities for engaging in those practices. And if you win as a plaintiff's attorney, then you're entitled to treble damages. And so, the municipal community, particularly CAMU, the Colorado Association of Municipal Utilities, which I'm also the attorney of, is really concerned this might lead to a flood of litigation against municipal utilities in particular, for things that are broad and uncertain and kind of ambiguous. And so we don't want to, obviously have that happen. Our position is that if you have a problem with your municipal utility, you think it's done something wrong, you can always go to your board of trustees, your city council, your utility board, and make those concerns known and get them dealt with that way. And there's plenty of options under the current laws of the state to, resolve those issues. And so we're fighting pretty hard against that right now. I just want to keep you updated. This bill has not been out very long. We're still doing some of the initial work on it. I just want to let you know there's another piece of legislation that we're tracking right now. So any questions on that, and as you know, we're gonna have a Honeywell update here pretty soon. So I'm not going to go into that right now.
Any questions for Attorney Devon? Okay, then I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break. And
Or make your motion.
and then you can make your motion and okay, and then if there's any, I was just thinking if there's any action items coming out of that, then right.
There shouldn't be, I would think. It would just be direction, right?
Right, any direction. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I sent language to Victoria and Dolores and Mayor Rogan for the executive session, just FYI.
I got it. I got
And then I'll
it.
create
And
a
Mayor
new
Pro,
one now.
okay, and Mayor Pro Tem has the motion language. So thank you.
Thank you.
Would, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move to an executive session being conducted pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024B and E for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiators in receiving legal advice from town attorney with regard to the St. Vrain Trail project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Are we in the executive session?